be up here. If you speak, we just have a sign-in sheet that you send in with your name and address. At the time when you speak. When you speak. Yes.
Good evening, folks. Welcome to the City of Lowell Zoning Board of Appeals public hearing for May 22nd. Just a few reminders, and if you are speaking on behalf of petition this evening, please make sure you go up to the lectern and state your name and address for the record, and please sign in as well. Also, if anyone has a cell phone or electronic device, if you can put it on silent so it doesn't disrupt the meeting, that would be appreciated. And if folks have any conversation, if you could take it outside to the hallway so it doesn't disrupt the meeting, that would be appreciated as well. Moving on to continued business, we have ZBA-2023-7. Petition is a variance. The applicant, Mary Burns, property located at 209 Gibson Street. Ms. Burns has applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals to construct a single-family home at 209 Gibson Street. The subject property is located in the traditional single-family TSF zoning district. The project requires variance approval pursuant to Section 5.1 for relief from the minimum lot area per dwelling unit, minimum frontage, minimum side yard setback, maximum front yard side setback, and maximum floor area FAR requirements, and any other relief required under the Lowell zoning ordinance. Good evening, Councilor.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, and thank you. For the record, my name is John Geary of Geary & Geary LLP, 32 Church Street, Lowell, Mass. I'm here tonight representing Mary Burns. Mary is the applicant and the owner of 209 Gibson Street. With us tonight, as I said, Mary's here with us tonight. We also have Brian Melissi of Haley Ward Engineering. Brian is the engineer for the project. He's just going to set up his tripod with the plan. The application involves a request for variances pursuant to 5.1 and 6.1 of the ordinance. The subject property is a vacant lot located at 209 Gibson Street in the traditional single-family zoning district. The lot consists of approximately 4,000 square feet of land. The applicant is proposing to construct a 3-bedroom, 1.5-bath, single-family home on this vacant lot. The home will consist of approximately 1,740 square feet of living space. Property will be serviced by a driveway to the north of the lot, allowing for sufficient off-street parking. There's also plenty of usable open space by way of the backyard. I'll also point out that the property is in pretty close proximity to Tyler Park and other city parks for any residents of this home that wish to take advantage of the public open space. Since our initial filing, which was quite some time ago now, we've revised all of our plans, and you should have had all these revised plans in your possession now for a few weeks. But Brian will review the site plan, but very quickly, just to highlight some of the changes. It's a complete new design of the proposed home. The revised design no longer proposes a garage. It also takes into consideration some of the comments from the Historic Board's administrator in terms of siding and windows. The site plan revisions also include situating the structure closer to the south side of the lot in order to allow for 2 tandem parking spaces to the north side of the lot. This was a suggestion by DPD staff and in review of their initial plans. As always, it was a thoughtful suggestion, and we incorporated it into the plan. So the variances that we're seeking tonight, a minimum lot area, minimum lot size, minimum side yard setback, lot area per dwelling area, and floor area ratio. We're also seeking relief from 6.1 for the driveway setbacks. Because of the redesign of the home, we no longer require relief from minimum or maximum front yard setbacks. Gibson Street is a mix of single, two, and multifamily properties, with most of the lots on this street ranging in size from 4,000 to 6,000 square feet. For purposes of demonstrating that the proposed construction of a single-family home on this lot is consistent with the character of the neighborhood, and particularly the street, I've incorporated an exhibit into my application which highlights the lot sizes of 5,000 or less square feet on this street and in the neighborhood. I believe there are more than 30 that are highlighted on that exhibit. The applicant is proposing a home that is appropriate for this size lot. The architectural plans that we submitted depict a street perspective, and you should all have this plan which shows the street perspective, shows exactly how the home will look running along the street, and I think that's very beneficial for the board. Looking at this street perspective, I'd suggest that the architect did a great job of designing a home that fits onto this lot and onto the street. And although the applicant's seeking significant relief here tonight, I'd suggest that if many of the existing homes on Gibson Street needed to comply with the current zoning, they would need the same type of relief that we're here requesting tonight. My point, of course, is that what we're proposing fits the character of the street and the neighborhood. With regard to the staff comments, the first several comments outline the relief that we're requesting, and as I noted, we are also, in addition to what's noted there, we're requesting relief from 6.1 because of the driveway setbacks, and we no longer need relief for the front yard minimum and maximum setbacks. So picking up on comment number 9 and 10, the revised site plan eliminates the garage and any need for parking in front of the home, and now provides for landscape area in front of the home, which I think is a good improvement, a great improvement. Comment number 11, as I mentioned, we've taken the advice of DPD. We've shifted the house to the south side of the property, which allows for 2 tandem parking spaces along the north side of the lot, which is adjacent to the abutter's driveway as well, which is the reason for proposing it on that side of the lot. Comment number 12, the landscape plan provides for a couple of shade trees, and DPD seems to be supportive of that proposal. Of course, if there's approval tonight, we're happy to condition any approval on final approval of the landscape plan by DPD. The revised plan takes into consideration the engineering comments, and Brian will review those with the board when he reviews the site plan. I'd also point out that because this property is in the Tyler Park Historic District, we also need to seek relief from the Historic Board. Based on the initial comments we received from the Historic Board Administrator, we believe that we can accommodate any suggestions or requirements from the Historic Board in terms of the design of the home. And again, our revised home takes into consideration the siding and the windows, which are an impact for the facade. So at this point, I'll turn the presentation over to Brian. He'll run through the site plan, and then I'll come back and summarize. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, my name is Brian Melissi with Haley Ward. I'm we're the civil engineers on the project. And I apologize, I got a very crudely colored up plan, which now I look at, it's probably too far for any of you guys to look at it either. But it's just again, a crudely colored plan of the site plan that was included in the application. I think Attorney Geary pretty much did a pretty good job of going over some of the plan revisions, so I'm going to be kind of very brief. As part of the initial comments, there were some engineering comments to show the existing and proposed utilities on the site plan, including water, sewer, and gas, you know, which we have done. We showed the water service, we showed the sewer service. Comment number 15 asks for, there's a utility pole in the area where the proposed driveway was shown. And I know these comments came from the original plan where they had a kind of a center set garage and a driveway that they'd have to back up onto it. So we do show the utility pole, which is probably a very good comment that was picked up on. It does kind of sit almost in the center of the lot. So making these revisions and jumping that driveway over to the north side of the lot made a lot of sense. Relocate the driveway as needed and adjust the proposed driveway opening, which we have shown. The original landscaping plan showed a tree in the, I guess, the north or the southeast corner. And when looking at the site plan or looking at the existing conditions, there's a very large tree in that area. Looking at the tree, it's large, it's kind of leaning. So what we decided to do was show that existing tree, but also showed a proposed tree in that area in case that tree is damaged, either during construction or not in good shape. We would commit to putting a tree up in that spot. The rest of the comments really are, contractor will need to apply for all city construction permits. They're really housekeeping items typical to any construction project in the city. And I know I was very brief, but again, I think Attorney Geary touched base on most of the improvements. But again, my name is Brian Melissi. I'll be here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Brian. So we feel we meet the criteria for issuance of the variances requested tonight in that there's a special hardship owing to the circumstances relating to the size of this lot. When this neighborhood was originally laid out over 100 years ago, all the lots were much smaller than what the current ordinance requires. So because this separately taxed lot is now undersized, there's a financial hardship that exists for the applicant. The applicant has been paying real estate taxes as though it's a buildable lot for quite some time now. The current assessed value of the lot is $120,000, which would lead us to believe that it's being assessed as a buildable lot. In addition, there's no detriment to the public good by granting the requested relief. In fact, increasing the housing stock is consistent with the city's master plan and Sustainable Lowell 2025's housing choice plan. It provides an additional house in the city, which is great. It fills that middle housing gap that's missing in the city, and it ultimately will create a reasonably priced home for a family to live in this beautiful neighborhood for quite some time to come. The granting of the variance in this case would not nullify or derogate from the intent of the zoning for this district. There are many homes on Gibson Street and the surrounding streets that are similarly sized lots. As I mentioned earlier, the proposed home was designed to fit the lot. Adding another single-family home in a single-family district with lots that are similarly sized is in character with the neighborhood. Finally, I'd suggest in a city like Lowell, where we have very little developable land, we have to take advantage of these undersized lots in order to create additional housing. The undersized lots are not appropriate everywhere, but it is appropriate in this instance. The city's, as you all know, we're in a severe housing crisis right now. I think I read in the paper when the governor was here last week, we have a shortage of over 200,000 homes in the Commonwealth. And the city is in the mix there too. Every single unit makes a difference to alleviate that housing crisis. So for all the reasons I stated, we believe that we meet the criteria for issuance of the requested variances, and we respectfully request approval tonight. We're happy to answer any questions that the board members may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Geary. Now we'll open up the hearing for this petition to the public. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Opposition? Yes, sir. Will you state your name and address for the record? Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Robert Hunt, and I've lived at 48 Florence Avenue, one street over from Gibson Street for the last 47 years. I've come tonight to voice my opposition for this project. The reasons are very clear. This is a lot that is this is a subdivided lot that was substantially below the required zoning. The owner has only 50% of the required lot size and only 57% of the frontage. This doesn't include the other variance hurdles that need addressing. And what I wanted to point out was the 3 conditions needed for variance prerequisites. And not meeting all 3 would prove to be fatal in granting a variance. The first one, which is special hardship. This particular lot has no hardship, has the soil condition, shape, and topography, but is vastly undersized under current zoning, and the size is unbuildable. B, public good. This lot is located in an already crowded street with inadequate parking due to the existence of many multifamily homes and single-family homes that have been broken up. A ride down this street in the evening will tell you all you need to know. There are green signs, "Don't park in front of my house," and cars wall to wall on each side. You could even make a good case that this should be a one-way street. There are so many cars on the street. The existing homes that are built on the undersized lot, as the councilor referenced in Exhibit A, the applicant narrative, were built in the early 1900s in an area considered suburban with very few cars and under different zoning requirements than those of today. And granted, it's impossible to build a house on that with that zoning as it stands now. The lot is located in the Tyler Park Historic District. Squeezing a 3-bedroom home on an unbuildable lot would not reflect or enhance the character of the neighborhood. It would just be squeezing it in. And C, the intent of zoning. In the TSF, it is to establish adequate lot size for homes in that designation. The proposed lot for building a 3-family home is 4,000 K, which falls substantially below the 7,000 K that zoning requires. The TSF zoning requires 70 feet of frontage, while this lot has only 40, and again, substantially below the required zoning. Based on the conditions needed and the failure to meet them as I've outlined, I ask the board to reject this application for a variance under the current zoning laws. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Hunt, for your comment. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Good evening, ma'am.
Thank you. My name is Diane McLeod, 239 Gibson Street, and this letter is from myself and my husband, Robert. As owners, residents, and taxpayers of 43 years who raised a family at 239 Gibson Street, we both object to granting the variance requested for 209 Gibson Street. Gibson Street has gotten increasingly congested over the years in both the number of residents and the amount of traffic on the street, and we see this project as adding to the problem. After reviewing the request and the supporting documentation, we have a couple of thoughts. Just because there are non-conforming lots that currently exist, adding another is not necessarily appropriate. It just exacerbates the congestion. In addition, none of these Gibson Street properties are 4,000 square feet, which is just over half of the 7,000 square foot requirement. The design as submitted and revised is simply an interesting attempt to squeeze a dwelling into a woefully undersized lot, and in no way is keeping with the circa 1890s and 1920s colonial revival houses that comprise most of the street. The request under Section 5.1 is seeking relief in 6 different areas: minimum lot size, minimum lot frontage, minimum front yard, well, that apparently changed, but minimum side yard, lot area, dwelling unit, and floor area ratio. And under the amended site plan, it also seeks 2 additional parking variances, 2-foot offset on both sides as opposed to the 3-foot offset on both sides. This is a simple lot size variance, is not a simple lot size variance, but a request for multiple variances that in itself demonstrates how inappropriate this request is. Finally, Section 11.2.3 clearly requires 3 prerequisites to be met to approve this request: special hardship, public good, and intent of zoning satisfied. It is our understanding the owner previously purchased the dwelling with an oversized lot and then subdivided it, thereby creating a 4,000-foot non-conforming lot. And the only hardship here is due to the owner. It's self-inflicted. The public good is not served by creating additional congestion and ignoring the character of a neighborhood street. Any additional tax dollars would be spread throughout the city, whereas the detrimental effects of this project will be concentrated on this street. Finally, a plan seeking such extensive relief in no way maintains the intent of zoning. We respectfully object to this variance and ask that it be denied. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McLeod. Anyone else wish to speak in opposition? Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Clint Mosch, 211 Gibson Street. I live right next door. So kind of, these guys have gone over a lot of the stuff. I mean, the proposed home you guys are looking to put up is 4 feet from the property line. My house is 3.5 feet from the same property line for where it is. So we're proposing 7.5 feet from my home. That's wall to wall. And then soffits, obviously, it's going to bring it to less than 6 feet, whatnot, up at that height. So I just don't see, I mean, just for that one little thing, how we could build a house this close to mine seems pretty ridiculous to me. Also, on the north side where the driveway is going to go, next to that other driveway, there's 2 feet on each side of that. You put a fence up, you can't even get out of a car at that point. So, I mean, we're really trying to squeeze this tiny little house into this tiny little lot, and there's no room. Like they talked about green signs everywhere. There is no parking. My wife can't park half the time because people come, you know, and park in our spots. Even with the green sign, it doesn't matter. Snow removal is a major issue for all of us, and this just only makes it worse. The property hasn't been maintained in 20 years. I've lived next door. I'm the one that's plowed it, snow blowed it, picked up all the leaves from the trees that we're talking about taking down here. No one's ever maintained the property. So what I would love to see is it fixed, but I don't want to see a house put there. It's, you know, nothing good's, it's just too close. Sorry, I don't think it's right. I don't know if I had anything else. You know, and I'd like to, you know, make the point of the traffic. The street over from us is, I'm not sure what that is Foster Street, maybe the one that's to our, to the east. That street's about 10 feet wider, so it's not so bad that cars can pass by each other, and you still have plenty of room to park. Gibson Street is about 10 feet narrower, so every morning I pull out of my driveway, and I have to wait for someone else, and we pull in to an empty spot, or what we have to do, because you cannot get around. I mean, it's very busy, it's very congested, and that's how it is going in and out every day, and that's all day. That's just how it is. You always have to pull to get away. So somebody mentioned the one-way street. I mean, that's where we're at, you know, with this type of property. That's how tight it is right now. So I'm totally against it, and the biggest thing is, you know, how close it is. You won't let me build anything on my property that's within 4 feet of anything. You would tell me, no way, it's a fire code, and now you want to build a house right next to mine and say, hey, the fire code, we don't care about that here. You know, that just seems crazy to me. So that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mills, for your comments. Good evening, sir.
Hello, board members. Thank you for serving. I know it takes a lot of time, and there's not any salary with it. So thank you for doing that. I live on Gibson Street at 225. I am 3 lots up from this proposed property. I am against having it built simply because of what a lot of my neighbors have shared due to size constraints of the street. Parking, road, people driving up and down the street, as well as the size of the lot. And the size of the lot is only 4,000 square feet. I have a side yard that's 4,000 square feet. There's another house right up the street from me that has a side yard that's 4,000 square feet, and there's one more. So if we're going to begin to build these homes on these 4,000 square feet lots, what we're doing is we're taking away from the historical aspect of the neighborhood. We're in the Tyler Park Historic District. We all seem to love it. You know, we have a board that runs it. They meet regularly. They have parties. They have bands. They have events. And everybody loves being a part of that district. Well, when you take pieces of property that are realistically, and I've heard the word before, buzz, postage stamp size lots, and try to put a building, a 3-bedroom building, right, on one of those lots, what you're doing is you're taking away from the neighborhood. And I understand, the idea of, we need more housing and there's 200,000 fewer homes in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and so many in respect to Lowell. But this takes away from an integrity of a neighborhood. And the last thing I think any of us should do would be to take away from the neighborhood. I have 27 signatures, and I've only walked around for one day. I could have walked around many more than that, but I just chose that, that might have been enough. So I'd like to submit these signatures, and I'd
course.
also like to submit pictures of the property. We sort of look at 4,000 square foot. We sort of look at 4,000 square foot building looks like, or a lot, in respect to the buildings that are right next to it. Now, I have a number of children, and I had a driveway that parked 3 cars all nose in. Now, I'm hearing there's parking for 2 cars. Now, I know the parking would be with, how narrow the home is and how narrow the lot is, there will be nose-in parking or back-end parking, one parking car in front of the other car. Well, let's all be real. We don't live in a perfect world. At 8:30 in the morning, I may have to go to work, and my wife may, have to move her car in order for, for me to go to work. So the probable answer, more than likely, would be, okay, one of us parks on the street, and the other person parks in the driveway. So that's sort of going to add more congestion to the street, which is really an issue all by itself. Now, on that side of the street, the property lines go that are on Gibson Street, a 4-family, a 2-family, another 2-family, another 2-family, with that proposed site. With that being the case, there's really no room for parking even on that side of the street. So what do people do? They go to the other side of the street. So there's a major league parking issue there. And lastly that I want to touch on is that telephone pole. Sure, it's worked into the site plan. Take a look at the pictures of the property, please. That property will sit right behind that telephone pole. There is nothing that's going to make anything look good by just having a house behind a telephone pole on an undersized lot in a 125-year-old neighborhood. So I'm opposed to this plan. Mary, I have total respect for you. I think you're a great lady, and I know you have a great family. But in this particular case, I do not think that this is worth having on Gibson Street.
Thank you, Mr. Bao, for your comments, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? All right, good evening, Councilor.
Good evening, Chairman Peck. I just want to state my name for the record and state that I'm only here as a resident in no other capacity. My name's Eric Gitcher. I live at 34 Livingston Ave. The petitioner has been a neighbor of mine for almost 30 years, and Mary is a phenomenal person. This is nothing personal, but when you look at that area, we heard a lot of jargon. We hear about housing, we hear about all these things, but affordable housing is the issue in the city. So I want people to be well aware of that. And this is just a piece to use to try to get your way to build something. It really won't do anything for the housing in the city of Lowell. And one thing you look at, we talk about the aesthetics of the neighborhood. Well, that was 1900. There were 4,500 cars in the United States then. There's 278 million today. Somebody in their infinite wisdom along the way came up and changed the zoning to say, okay, now we need to have some distance between things. If you start a car in between these 2 homes, not only is, and we can't regulate what type of cars people have. So just the exhaust system into your home, you're right on top of people. I live on Livingston Ave. At one time, they put a house in our historic neighborhood. Our neighborhood fought against that because of all the reasons that are going on today. And one of the leading people that fought against it is sitting here petitioning in someone else's neighborhood. Is it any different? No. Of course, there's a couple different variances and everything, but when you look and we say, what are we doing for neighbor character? If you park vehicles on Livingston Ave, you get phone calls. Say, can you get those off our street? What makes our street different than theirs? They're not, the neighbors, you listen to the neighbors. Give them a fair shake. I like Mr. Gary, great attorney. This is wrong. And I get you're being paid to be here. This is just totally, totally wrong. Go to that neighborhood, drive up that neighborhood, and I get there's no other use for that land. Well, I didn't purchase the land. That's not my job to understand what the use of the land is. But if we're going to take back our city, it starts with all of you. It starts with all of the regulations that you enforce. 57% of the land, the 7,000 square feet is what they have, or less. If this was 90, you could say, okay, yeah, you know, you're right there, okay. 85, maybe, okay, you're right there. 57%. Drive up the street. Try to plow that street. Call the DPW. Ask them how many times they get a call in Gibson because they can't, because no one's moved their cars and you can't get down the road. I get those calls. So, you know, we're just saying that give the neighborhood a fair shake. Hopefully that's what all of you have been appointed to do, is look at these variances, look and say, look, don't bring these things to us anymore. We're not going to deal with this stuff anymore. You have much larger things to deal with in this city than this. And again, I thank all of you for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Gishera. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? All right. Seeing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? In favor? All right, in favor, seeing none. The public hearing is closed for the moment. We're going to open up questions and comments to the board. But Attorney Gary, did you want to make a few other comments before?
Yes, if I could, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
So,
go ahead, sir.
just a couple comments. So the lot was not subdivided. This has been a separate lot for forever. It was not subdivided. We are not exasperating the parking problem on this street. We are providing for the off-street parking as required by the code. So we will not be exasperating that situation. As far as neighborhood character, again, we're providing a single-family home in a single-family zoning district on a lot size that is very similar to many, many lots in the neighborhood and particularly on the street. And with regard to the historic district, we are confident that we can meet any requirements of the historic board and obtain approval from the historic board for the home that we intend to build. So we believe that we will meet the criteria of the historic board. So with that, I'll happy to answer any questions of the board.
Thank
One
you.
other question, one other comment. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. So with the gentleman on 211 Gibson Street, he mentioned that the house would be 7 feet or so apart. So we had proposed the driveway on the south side, on the north side of the lot, because the abutting driveway was on that side, so we figured the driveways would be together. But there really is nothing preventing us from flipping the driveway to the north, to the south side of the lot, if that's something that would interest the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Gary. All right, now we'll open up questions and comments from the board. The chair recognizes Mr. Hovey. Mr. Hovey, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, so one of my big problems with one of my big issues with this is you drive that neighborhood, every structure is either separated by appropriate setbacks or a driveway. So one of my biggest questions was, well, why did we go so close to 211? If it was flipped, you'd have a little more leeway on the driveway setbacks on the side and property, and be a little closer to the other side, which is a driveway, right? I think that's one of the big issues I have, because if you drive that neighborhood, that's how every other home in that area is. I do appreciate the undersized, everything under 5,000. This is even with that, is the smallest of all the lots in the neighborhood. Granted, by, anywhere from 40 to up as far as square footage, but I guess that was one of my big issues is along with some of the comments, but why wasn't this flipped to fit in this neighborhood a little more appropriate?
Yeah, and as I said, we can accommodate that easy enough. And I suppose that does make sense. You're creating a little bit more distance from that home at 211, and you have a driveway separating the structure from the other abutting, so it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, the gentleman from 211, his home is tight on the property line as it is, and then we're actually asking for relief to get closer to that home, and I see
Yeah.
that as an issue. But that's my main concerns on this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hovey, for your comments. The chair recognizes Mr. Prokop. Mr. Prokop, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney Gary, you mentioned that you are going to meet with this historical board. Have you met with them yet, or?
We have not. We've had some just initial discussions, preliminary discussions with the Historic Board Administrator in terms of what would be appropriate for siding and windows, and we've incorporated that into the revised design.
Okay, is that the only thing that you'll be discussing with the board?
That's right,
The windows?
Yeah, we wouldn't. This would be it would be considered a major application, so it would be a full board hearing before the Historic Board.
Okay, because it sounds like the historical board is very close with this community, and I think that it would be important to, for, in my opinion, the zoning board to get that result so that we can have a better feel of.
I think I would disagree a little bit. I think that the appropriate action would be to get our approvals here, then take it to the Historic Board. The Historic Board is going to weigh in on the facade, siding, windows. Without approvals, we can't do that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it is obviously an undersized lot. I mean, it's for a variance of 3,000 square feet is a lot to ask for. And I do appreciate that you did make some adjustments and you are willing to work with some of the changes. Again, it's a difficult situation in the sense of if you don't build, what do you do with this empty lot? And, that's the alternative that you have to consider. And I know that, there's a lot of opposition, but if nothing is built, does it end up being a trash pot where people just throw trash in and it doesn't beautify the neighborhood? But I'm a little stuck on the compromising, only because the variances is a lot, and but there are a lot of areas of the city that have lesser sized lots. I mean, there is Centerville, there is Back Central, that, we all have the same problems. But everybody wants a beautiful neighborhood. So this one is a tough call for me, but I think we just have to make sure that the guidelines are there as this construction goes on, and especially I'm concerned about the immediate abutters who would be impacted by this, like the gentleman with the driveway and so forth. But I don't have any other questions at this time, but I think I'd like to reserve the right to ask additional questions, because I have a lot that I'd like to absorb. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Prokop, I also have some pictures here that show the debris outside of the lot, which, if you ask me, I mean, the lot will, if we can't build on the lot's going to remain in its current state, which is a fence with overgrown brush. And trash collects there just naturally. And because it's a vacant lot, this happens quite a bit as well. So You know, you compare this to what, you know, to the picture that I showed with the streetscape, and I think it's a vast improvement.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prokop, for your comments. The chair recognizes Mr. Briere. Mr. Briere, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All the necessary parking for this construction is contained on site, correct?
Correct, Mr. Briere.
All right. In the interest of fairness to all the neighbors who've gathered, I hear your concerns. I hear your grievances. I don't think that there's anything really out of line with anything that's been said here tonight. But prior to hearing them, I was a proponent of building this home because I want to fully utilize vacant lots. I want to add to the housing stock. Mr. Getchier is absolutely correct. The problem in the city is affordable housing. He's absolutely true. This is not going to solve the affordable housing crisis, but it is going to add to desperately needed housing stock. And I fully believe that the variances being requested, the relief being requested can be granted, and a home can be constructed there and fit in the neighborhood. Of the 62 properties that we were shown on the map, 31 of them have more than 5,000 square feet, 31 of them have less. So it seems to me that it fits rather neatly. As I said, I was a proponent prior. There were concessions made, DPD, in their official comments, didn't like the original design. It was altered. And then again tonight, another concession was offered, which puts me over the top. Flipping the driveway, I think, would be a benefit to the direct abutter. And I'm going to support the proposal. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Briere, for your comments, sir. The chair recognizes Mr. McCarthy. Mr. McCarthy, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask a couple of questions, but you're asking for 7 variances. That's tremendous amount of variances, in my opinion. Yeah. And it seems rather excessive. I think a number of years ago, I was on the board when the property was in front of us on Livingston Street. Livingston Ave, Livingston Street. And I believe that that property met lot area and setbacks and parking, but the house was a lot narrower. And I think we only had 1 variance asked for, and that was frontage. And it was, I think, 55 versus 70 feet, not 40 versus 70 feet. And the applicant in front of us opposed that. So it does surprise me. But first, who is the owner of the property that we're talking about right now? The site plan says prepared for Kazanjian Enterprises. Is Kazanjian Enterprises the current owner of the site, of the lot?
No, Mary Burns is the owner of the site.
Okay. Is
Kazanjian would be building the...
Kazanjian would be building it. So the property has been maintained by Mary Burns over the past few
Mary
years?
Burns has been paying taxes over the last 15, 20 years.
And hasn't been maintaining the property per the city health code? Cutting the grass, maintaining the property per the city health code? How is that benefiting, I mean, as a minimum standard for the neighborhood? And the applicant lives in the neighborhood and is choosing to, I'm just shocked that you're putting in front of us how the property is not maintained. But it's not maintained per the city health code, which requires you to cut the grass and to remove, I'm just stunned that the applicant would choose not to maintain that property if she owns it.
I think you spoke of Livingston Street. I think the distinction there is, if you drive down Livingston Street, you have big homes with big lots. Almost all of the homes on that street. That's not the case here. You have big homes on small lots.
I disagree with you. I know of probably 15, I'm sorry, Eric Getcher's, Councilor Getcher's home is certainly, I think, might be 1,200 square feet. You know, it's certainly not a big home. And there's
Right,
probably...
but that's not 4,000 or 5,000 square feet.
No. The house that we approved, I think, was probably maybe 20 feet wide or even 18 feet wide on that 55-foot frontage and had met setbacks. If this house was 15 feet wide, it would meet setbacks. You wouldn't need that variance. If this house was 15 feet wide, we would meet FAR. If this house was 15 feet wide, we wouldn't need the driveway setbacks. You'd eliminate 3 variances if you went with a more modest size and didn't introduce a property that doesn't respect zoning, in my opinion. And Council, you made the point that you thought that it wouldn't nullify zoning because of the other properties in the neighborhood. But zoning isn't about the existing properties. Zoning is about what the zoning says. I'm confused as to how that is being put forward as an argument.
I'm talking about the character of the neighborhood. The
But-
character of the neighborhood, as it exists, is you have small, many small lots, as were depicted on that exhibit that I provided, and you have large homes on those small lots. So what we're proposing is in character with that.
We're talking about zoning, not character of the neighborhood, though. So you're confusing zoning with character of the neighborhood, in my opinion. If the zoning variance requires you not to nullify the intent of zoning and not to nullify the intent of the character of the neighborhood, then how are you not nullifying the intent of zoning by asking for 7 variances?
Well, we have a undersized lot that's been there since the neighborhood was laid out. So that's what we're stuck with. So that, the fact that the zoning has changed since then, 125 years, creates a hardship for Ms. Burns in terms of being being unable to develop that lot, which turns into a financial hardship. She's paying taxes on that lot as though it's a buildable lot. The assessed value is $120,000.
I don't think it's being assessed as a buildable lot. I happen to own a lot that's a similar size that I can't build on. It's not necessarily being a buildable lot. I don't understand why it's being confused as a buildable lot, because if it doesn't meet frontage.
It's clearly not a buildable lot, otherwise we wouldn't be here, but it's the assessed value would lead you to believe that it's a buildable lot.
I disagree with you on that argument. I know what the assessed value on the lot, and it's not a buildable lot.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. And it just adds to the ambiance of the neighboring property that I have. And it works. And this adds to the ambience, if it was maintained, to the street character. If it was maintained, to the city standards of the health code by the applicant who lives in the city, in the same neighborhood. Anyway. If you were in front of us asking for 2 variances, maybe 3, and you had a much smaller house that was modest, you know what, I could entertain it. But you're asking for 7 variances, and you don't have to. I'm surprised. I happen to live on Foster Street, the next street over. I know the neighborhood. I know what the neighbors are saying. And if I could just ask Fran, if you could just pass to the board that list of the people that signed the petition and the pictures that were presented by
Thank you.
Fred Bahu,
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gliano.
just so that we could all see what the intent of the neighbors think. And this was, I think, Fred just kind of going around quickly. I'm sure that a lot of the neighbors are not happy with this happening. And as I think Fred had mentioned, Mr. Bahu, that there's a lot of these potential subdivisions that could happen that are 100-foot wide, 110-foot wide, that could have a 40-foot, and we haven't, as a city, decided zoning changes yet. We have to wait and see if the city wants to adopt a smaller lot size on Gibson Street. But right now, it doesn't have that. You do not meet the criteria for a variance. You don't meet the criteria for 7 variances, in my opinion. But that's only my opinion. And I'm disappointed that the applicant doesn't maintain the lot in the neighborhood that she lives in, and is coming before us asking for 3 extra variances than she has to. I'm disappointed. It really does seem like a lack of care and concern for the integrity of the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy, for your comments, sir. The chair recognizes the vice chairman, Ms. Callahan. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, through Mr. Chairman. Yes, this is a difficult one. I mean, well, first, counsel, you had photos of your own. Did you want to submit for the record?
Yes, please.
Just as far as the condition of the lot. I know we have photos from the opposition, but to make it fair, just want to make sure we. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
I think they all shows the same thing. With the condition of the lot is obviously overgrown, and I think you mentioned that this, yeah, trash and, yeah, now that I'm looking at it, being dumped there, yeah. Mhm. Okay, yeah, thank you. That gives a bit of perspective as well. I assume you share that with the opposition, or the opposition should be, I mean, the neighborhoods should be aware of, obviously they're there, they see the trash that's being posted on that lot.
Of course.
For that, so. I hear the concerns of the neighborhood and the neighbors. I'm very familiar with Gibson Street. Spent a good time of my childhood there. I didn't grow up in the neighborhood, but I have good friends that lived in the neighborhood that I was over there. The house very frequently, so I'm very familiar with the neighborhood. It is congested, but it's a neighborhood, and it's a single-family neighborhood, and there are a lot of oversized buildings on that street, 2 families, single families, and whatnot. I know there was mention of it being a subdivided lot, and counsel, you rightfully pointed out, it's not subdivided. This lot's been in existence. I looked it up on Mass Land Records. Thank you for providing the deed, by the way, so I can backtrack that. Mm-hmm. This lot has been in existence since 1961, before zoning even existed.
Right.
So, and by my account, and I guess I'll confirm with you, it looks like since this lot's been in existence, it's been in your client's family since the beginning, or
62,
since
I think, yeah.
62? Okay.
Yeah.
So, so we have, and it is undersized. Yeah, we're all in existence. It is undersized, but it's undersized. It's been that way since almost 60 years now. Before zoning, which means the intent at some point was it was buildable. The lot sizes have changed over since zoning's been in existence. This is a single-family neighborhood, and the definition of neighborhood residentials they're designed to preserve, promote, and enhance pedestrian scale character of Lowell's historical residential neighborhoods. They encourage moderately sized lots and prohibit large-scale developments. The single-family district emphasizes single-family homes. And I look at that moderately sized, that could go any ways. I understand that the code's changed over the years. We're now at 7,000 for a lot size. But previously, I'm presuming I don't know what it was previously, but I'm presuming it was a lot less. Mm-hmm. Probably close to 4,000 at that point, which is shown on what you've laid out here, what you provided us as far as the other lots that are in the neighborhood that are well below 5,000 square feet. Thank you. So, I totally understand the concerns of the neighbors, but also I see that to the point of if nothing's done with this lot, what's going to be done? It's just going to sit there, stay overgrown, trash going to be collecting? And then what's the character of the neighborhood going to be like at that point? And God forbid, who knows if anybody else goes on there and starts encamping or something like that. I don't know. I can't speculate. But you have several variances that you're requesting. The special hardship, I see, yes, it's an undersized lot in a zone that's said for traditional single family that's overgrown, but it's been undersized since its existence in 1961 for over 60 years. So it doesn't meet the criteria of zoning presently, but it's been that way for some, before zoning existed. So I think you have a special hardship. I'll give you that. Public good. Adding, it's already on the tax rolls, it's being paid for as a taxable thing, but it's going to be an increase in, if it's built upon, it's going to be an increase in tax revenue for the city. Provides more for affordable housing, or more housing, which we all agree is well needed. And it just takes the blight out of a lot that's just sitting there, that's collecting, just being overgrown and collecting debris. So I think it would be for the public good, and it would be better for the neighborhood. I understand that the congestion, there's a debate between the congestion of the neighborhood, but also beautifying the neighborhood to getting rid of a blighted lot. So I will give you public good. Intent to zoning, looking at the lot surrounding, again, knowing now that this lot has been in existence prior to zoning, and seeing the other undersized lots in the area, and that just being a single-family house, which, based on the definition of the single-family residential, which encourages preserving, promoting, and enhancing a pedestrian-style character of the neighborhood, and encourages moderately sized lots for that purpose with a single-family house. I think you may meet that as well. As far as the layout of the house, I understand you proposed possibly moving the driveway to the other side. I'm not opposed to that, but I find a couple concerns in that, one, there's an existing tree there, which I believe in the original plans you had said you planned on keeping it. That, I don't know how long the tree's been there. I hate to see that go, but it is overgrown and it is kind of overlaying over the street as well. So that could be, but I'd hate to see that tree go.
I think the tree is right in the center of the lot. So, if the tree can be, no, to the far left. So we would have to, that tree would have to go.
Yeah.
And it's questionable if the tree is going to be viable anyway, but we are proposing at least 2 additional shade trees.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my question about if they're going to keep the tree, but there was a mention about trying to keep the tree, but also still providing the shade trees.
It's the pole that's in the center of the lot, by the way, not the tree.
The pole, yeah, the pole, that was the other thing as far as the pole is in the center,
Yeah.
direct center of the lot, and I don't know how that would affect putting the driveway on that side as well.
Yeah. I was just confusing the pole and the tree, that's all.
Yeah, the tree is on the corner, the southeast corner.
Yeah.
And my concern about, sir, all right, Mr. Geary, I know this gentleman's raising his hand. I guess, do you want to speak, sir?
I do. Yeah, so that is in the
I'm going to step to the podium. I'll let you speak.
The tree is the southeast corner, and it's about 2 feet up off of the sidewalk. There's a lot of runoff there that I've cleaned over the years to put back in the place. So it's much higher. The tree sits much higher. That tree will be gone for sure. The pole is towards the center, so there's no room for you to put a driveway in on that side.
That's the point I was getting at. I saw you.
It's promoted to put it to that other way. There's no way you're doing that on the property line with 2 feet. There's not enough space there.
Okay, that's the point I was trying to get at with Attorney Geary. Thank you for
Thank you, Mr. Moses.
for clarifying. So, Attorney Geary, if you want, I don't know if you want to talk to your client, but I just.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, you know, if we did flip the driveway, we would have to eliminate the tree. We are proposing 2 additional shade trees, so we like to think we're making up for that.
Okay. I mean, I'd hate to see the tree go, but it does seem like it's kind of been there forever, and it's overgrown. It does seem to grow, again, overlay over to the street as well. But I'll leave it to my fellow board members, whatever they're thinking about that. But that's all I had, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan. Mr. Gary, Attorney Gary, you know, I think, as people have mentioned already, you and your client have made a lot of compromises and really try to work with DPD and, you know, comments from on the character of the neighborhood. So I applaud you for that. I think that's a very admirable thing you and your client are doing. I did get quite a lot of comments and calls and communication from people, just not tonight. And thank you to the neighbors and abutters who came out to speak. I think it's always very valuable and keeps us all informed when people can share their perspective and thoughts on things, whether they're for or against or indifferent. I think it's all part of the process. I do just want to note for the record the list of petitions that we received. I counted 24 names on this petition today that we just got handed in this evening. Counselor, would you and Ms. Burns, your client, would you be open to scaling down the size of the actual building in the single family, or is this pretty much where you stand in terms of the layout and the build you want to build, you and your client?
Could I confer with my client?
Of course, Counselor.
Thank you.
May I speak, Mr. Chairman?
If my colleague's okay with this, I'm going to allow Mr. Bahu to say a few
Yeah,
words.
your time, Mr. Chairman, whatever you
Okay.
like to do.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Mr. Bahu, go ahead. I'll give you a minute or so, sir. It is.
Okay, I only need a minute.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
I'm hearing a lot about what's going to happen with the lot if, you know, nobody builds on it. It's still going to be an eyesore. Sure, yes, it's going to be an eyesore, but I'm sure there are some people on the street that would consider purchasing the lot, especially the abutter, who I know has a couple of small children, or the other abutter on the other side who has a 4-family and doesn't have enough parking. So I'm sure that would be a consideration. And secondly, I think you guys are like the zoning board. So I don't know that it's in your purview to try to figure out exactly what's going to be happening with the lot if it doesn't get built. So I just wanted to make those comments. I think I filled my minute, but thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Bahu. So what are you thinking, Counselor, in
So,
terms of?
Mr. Chairman, to answer your question, yes, my client would be amenable to taking a look at the design of the property to see if we can shrink the size, the width, as Member McCarthy mentioned, and try to alleviate some of the relief that we're requesting tonight. So if the board would be amenable to a continuance, we would be happy to take a look at that.
I think it'd be beneficial to everyone involved if you can really scale down the size of the project and the build. I mean, that's just my perspective on this. And I would be open to you going back to the drawing board with your client, with the builders, kind of scaling down the size of the actual home and single family. I think we all agree that how it stands and sits currently, it's not doing anyone any favors or doing the neighborhood or the city or anyone any justice, just an empty lot like that. So this particular project is before us. Mr. Bajo, thank you for your comments. Again, to the comments of my colleagues, Mr. Callahan, I can't speculate what people want to do with their lot or whatever. But currently, the project in front of us, I'm gonna see its merit and base it on what can be done in line with zoning, but also if it meets the spirit of the neighborhood and zoning. So I would be open to continuing this matter, so you can go back to the drawing board and again, you are seeking a lot of relief, Counselor. If you go back to the drawing board, maybe it's only a few variants you need, or maybe it's none. I think you have the manpower, the expertise to get all that done. And again, I think the neighborhood and the city would be better off if we can, like speaker before me said, if we can have more to our housing stock. It just has to really be appropriate to not just zoning, but fit in with the neighborhood and not be detrimental. So to my colleagues, if there's no objection, the project before us, we'll continue it. I see Mr. McCarthy. Go ahead, sir. Did you have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm glad we're entertaining a continuance, and I see easy variances to eliminate for sure in the next go-around would be the driveway setback and the FAR. And I think you can make a long way towards the side yard setback. Maybe you don't get there, but certainly getting to a 20-foot wide house or structure and one that meets the current FAR would go a long way towards having something that is more reasonable for the neighborhood. But you do have that telephone pole.
We do.
And I don't think you're moving the telephone pole.
We're not, no.
Okay. So,
So we'll take a look, we'll get together with our design team, take a look at it, and see what we can bring back.
very good. Thank you.
I was going to mention, look at the feasibility of moving it over to the southeast side. I don't think it's, with the telephone pole there and the tree, the present tree, it's a tough go, but I mean, if you want to look at the feasibility of it, and even if you come back, like, here's the options we have.
Yeah,
but
right.
We can't, if you say you can't do it because of the telephone pole, so be it. There's nothing you can do about that.
All right, we'll work with Brian and the architectural team, and we'll see what we can come up with.
Okay.
I do have a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Harvey. The floor is yours, sir.
So currently, we're not sure on the southeast corner if that tree is feasible, but you do have a plan to replace it currently, correct? So whether that's on the southeast or the northeast portion of the property, it's still a tree on either side, correct?
Yeah, we are going to incorporate as many shade trees as we can.
No, I appreciate that. To one of the other members' points is, I have a hard time approving something, and this is just a statement, hard time approving something because the maintenance conditions aren't currently met. So I don't think that's a reason that we approve something because the property is not being maintained properly. Now, that's something that's outside our purview or whatever. We're just here on variances, but it's just kind of, we shouldn't say, well, it's not being maintained, so we have to allow building on it. And I'm not saying that's the case here. I'm just making the comment in general.
Understood.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Any more comments from my colleagues? All right, seeing none. It looks like our next hearing or meeting would be June 12th. Would that be sufficient, Counselor? Do you need more time, or what do you think in terms of continuance date?
June 12th.
Or the 26th, June 26th as well.
Fran, do you have, can I ask through you, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Can I ask Francesca a question? Do you have an agenda set for the 12th yet?
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 public hearings scheduled for that night, plus an administrative review.
We would be happy to go to the next meeting, the
Okay.
26th, I think it is.
That'd be appreciated, Counselor.
Yeah.
So the matter before us, we're going to continue to our June 26th public hearing. Just for the record and for the public notice, this will be the public notice. There will be no other public notice for the hearing on this particular matter. Can I have a motion to continue?
Housekeeping question, inquiry, I guess, with Fran, Mr. Chairman. Understanding the current status of the interwebs with the city, as far as if there's any new plans submitted, how is the public going to be able to view those? Are they going to be on the website, or are they capable of getting them on the website?
If we get an electronic copy, we can upload them to the website. We can add things to the website, even in the current state of affairs. Yes.
Okay, just making sure, because I know this with the
I would offer, if there's a neighborhood representative that wants to give me their information, I'm happy to email them out the revised plans when we have it.
That'd be great, Counselor. Thank you.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Counselor, for that.
Oh, okay.
If there's no other comments from my colleagues, can we have a motion to adjourn this hearing? Continue, excuse me, to continue this matter before us.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for ZBA 2023-7 for variances at 209 Gibson Street to be continued to June 26th.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McCarthy, second by Mr. Prokop. Can we have a roll call, please?
Chairman Peck.
Approve continuance.
Member Callahan.
Approved continuance to June 26, 2023.
Member McCarthy.
Approve continuance to June 26th.
Member Briere.
Approval.
Member Prokop.
Approve continuance to June 26, 2023.
Member Hovey.
Approve.
All right, Counselor. This matter has been continued to June 26th. We'll see you next month.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to our next scheduled item on the agenda under continued business. We have ZBA-2023-11. The petition is a special permit. Property located at 459 Broadway Street. Section 4.5, Farrad Gur has applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals seeking special permit approval at 459 Broadway Street. The applicant is seeking to increase the total number of cars that can be sold at this site. The subject property is located in the urban mixed-use UMU zoning district. The proposal requires special permit approval pursuant to Section 4.5 for an extension of a non-conforming use and any other relief required under the Lowell zoning ordinance. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you guys doing?
Good. How are you, sir? Can you tell us a little about your project?
So we were gonna go with 25 cars, but I think 10 will be good. 10 parking spaces for selling cars should be enough, if that's good with you guys.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Anything else you want to share with us before we open this hearing to the public?
Well, that will be it. I just need your blessings, and I would like to make money.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Giha. Now we'll open the hearing to the public. Anyone wish to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. We're going to open questions and comments to the board. The chair recognizes Mr. Prokop. Mr. Prokop, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sir, did you see the response from the economic director?
No, I did not.
Says if granting a special permit means the applicant will have 10 cars for sale on the site, I am in favor.
Yes.
However, if the applicant continues to have well in excess of 10 cars on the site, the special permit will be revoked.
I already purchased a new place in North Andover, and I just got back from a hearing that I just got the permit on my new place. So you're not gonna see it condensed here no more. So it's gonna be a gas station all over again, a small convenience store. I'm gonna be pulling permits, and I'm not gonna have more than 10 cars. I mean, I would love to get the blessings to afford more than that, but as of now, 10 should be good.
So you would agree with the 10 cars?
100%.
Okay. I mean, you do have multiple businesses there, and you've been there for a while.
Yes.
So, you know, we hope to keep you here. It's not to,
I'm not gonna go nowhere. I love dealing with you guys. You guys were so good to me. Lowell was good to me. People in Lowell, they gave me what I have.
okay,
So I respect that. I appreciate it. I'm thankful for it.
okay.
And that's how I afforded North Andover out of Lowell. So I'm not gonna put it
Understood,
behind.
understood. Well, I don't think this is any particular issue, so I'll be voting in favor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Prokop. The chair recognizes Mr. Breer. Mr. Breer, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm supporting the petition. 10 cars, my friend.
I promise you.
Thank you, Mr. Breer. The chair recognizes Mr. McCarthy. Mr. McCarthy, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm glad we're talking about 10 cars. The site plan looks good, but it doesn't include landscaping as far as your intent. I'd like to see at least 2 3-caliber shade trees and deciduous or evergreen shrubs or some type of shrubs and not just bark mulch or gravel. Are you agreeable with that?
I do agree with that totally. You just
Okay.
gotta give me 4 or 5 months until I get my new place set up, and probably in September or in October, you're gonna see that place beautiful and gorgeous like it used to be. Nice
I
trees,
don't know.
nice
It's
trees
been a long
outside.
time since it was beautiful and gorgeous. It's been quite a while since it was beautiful and gorgeous, so.
I'm a sales guy.
Well, I'm looking forward to this, and I'm really looking forward to the shade trees especially, and the landscaping that you're putting in, because that site and that street really needs it in that area. So I'm glad we had the opportunity to improve that part of this, and also to provide the parking for the vehicles in the back, so it doesn't crowd the street, and it looks a little more reasonable for that street. So I think the site plan works very well. So.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I can support this, I think. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. The chair recognizes the vice chairman, Mr. Callahan. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chairman. I remember you, when you came before us a couple months ago with I think it was for an administrative review on increasing the number of cars at that point, like, because it got passed like many years ago, that allowed you to have 4 cars, right, on the lot for sale. Yeah, and I think we mentioned, well, we should have the public involved in this, and that's why we're now here today, because to get public notice out, and I want to increase to 10. But I think at that time, if I recall, you mentioned that the gas business wasn't doing well, the convenience part wasn't doing well, and you're basically shifting to the car sale business to adapt, which is great. But now you're saying that the gas business is coming back and the convenience.
The landlord didn't let me take the gas out, so I don't own the property.
So you're gonna, but you're gonna be still.
He wants to open up the gas. He
Yeah.
wants to keep up with it. So I gotta do what it takes. So
Well-
I'm gonna reopen the gas to keep up the place, to keep my lease.
Yep.
And plus, I already have my customers, so
Yeah.
so why not?
No, I'm praising that. That's like great I mean, if before it was like, well, you got to adapt to however it's going to keep things going, and now the gas is coming back and possibly convenience, so you're expanding the business, and hopefully things are going to go a lot more well. The only thing I had, like we said, 10 cars, right? So I guess my first question is, now, Fran, does that change anything as far as parking is concerned now that because I think there was mention that if it's technically going to be a car dealership, that you need 1 car per 15 on the lot, but now it sounds like it's going to be a combo gas station car dealership. So does that change anything as far as parking is concerned, or?
I do not have the plans in front of me.
Okay.
Hold on one moment.
Well, while you're looking that up, I mean, I'm just looking at the layout. You have the designated spots for 10 cars, but nothing designated for parking. For,
There is parking spaces for customers. The engineer, he draw towards the side of the building. He put 3 parking spaces for customers. 2 parking spaces for customers.
Mr. Chairman?
Right now, Mr.
oh, it's an old one. Oh, okay.
Mr. Callahan has the floor. Mr. Beer, did you want to say something, sir?
I'd like to point something out that might be helpful to...
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, if you can, Mr. Bria, thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Bria.
I'm referring to the memorandum dated May 15.
Yep.
If you go to number 5, it speaks to the off-street parking requirement, where DPD staff indicates that there is sufficient parking to meet the variance requirement.
Okay, yeah, but I think my question was to Fran. Now, he's saying that the gas station is going to be operable. Does that change anything as far as parking is concerned now that it's going to, or I guess it was in existence before, it just wasn't?
It's always been a gas station.
There's always been a gas station, right? Yeah.
Right. If the use isn't changing, it doesn't trigger.
Doesn't it trigger
Additional-
any additional parking
No.
if necessary?
Correct.
Okay, I think that was basically my concern and my question, but you said that there is, what, 3 spaces available for parking for, like,
2 parking spaces in the back.
in the back?
Actually, in the front, on the side of the building.
Okay, but that's just going to be just for
Just-
customers and,
Yes.
and yourself or other employees and stuff like that? Okay. All right. Well, again, thank you for, I mean, you were here before. Again, thank you for going through the process, because, again, we have to make sure the public is aware. Like I said, I think I said at the last meeting was, if we granted you the relief and then someone would be like, hey, what's going on? Why is he selling all these cars? I wasn't made aware of it. But the public's been made aware of it. We've had the public hearing now. No one's appeared in opposition. So I'm presuming there is no opposition. Sounds like, I'm glad you're staying in Lowell and keeping your business going here, and glad that things are starting to pick up, and I wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. The chair recognizes Mr. Hovey. Mr. Hovey, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. I'm just looking at the site plans that are submitted. You're asking for 10 spots to sell cars. There's 10 parking spots here. So it doesn't meet number 5 because there's not one designated space for customers. There's only 10 spots. We're asking for 10 cars to fill those spots. There is no designated parking. I know the original change from 22 to 10 was because there wasn't a fire apparatus. They couldn't get through there. So I don't see it meeting number 5. I think with the gas station open and the convenience store open, there's no customer parking. So somebody to go to the convenience store, we're going to force them out onto the street. And that's an issue. That's right next to the Stocklosa School. It's a high-traffic area on Broadway. So, I don't see us meeting, at minimum, the DPD number 5 here. If we went to 9 and designated 1 for customer parking, then we're still going to have no employee parking, no customer parking for the convenience store. So I think parking and being able to get customers on site here, if that's what we're going to revert back to, a gas station and convenience store. The special permit was originally for 3, being able to sell 3 cars there, which would leave parking for customers of the store and the gas station. And now we're going to fill all that parking space with cars to be sold, and we're not going to have any space for customers or employees to park on site.
We can give up on the convenience store.
Well, you just said it wasn't your choice to give up on it or not. It's
I mean,
the owner's, right? So I think that's where we have the issue here.
Yeah.
Is the owner's dictating one thing, he still wants the gas and convenience, and you want to be able to sell 10
The
cars.
car is gonna make me the most money. That's what's gonna keep my doors open, and that's what's gonna keep me from paying payroll.
Right.
So not the
And
gas.
I sympathize
have to
with,
pick-
with what you're saying, but we also have to leverage what the owner of the
Totally
property wants,
understand.
right? The owner of the property wants the convenience store and the gas pumps to be functional. So you're going to have customers coming, and with this site plan and with 10 cars to be sold on this lot, there's no place for customers. So that's my issue with this project.
But if you don't mind me saying something, so in the back of the building, right below the trees, there is against the wall, you can put 12 cars easily, and people, they can still come in and out perfectly fine without having no problems, no traffic on the street, and parking enough cars for employees.
But that's not on any of what's in front of us.
Okay. Totally understandable, no problem.
Thank you, Mr. Hovey, for your comments, sir. Mr. Gia, thank you again for coming back tonight. As my colleagues said, I think this is a great opportunity and great moment, not just for you, but for the city and for the community, when you have the opportunity to not just continue your business, but grow and expand it.
Thank you.
I think we're at a time, I think, economic-wise, you see a lot of businesses kind of not doing too well. So I'm glad, I'm sure my colleagues are very excited and happy for you that you continue to do well and even expand your business and grow the need, because cars aren't going away anytime in the near future, so people are always going to need vehicles. I think for me, I think this is pretty straightforward. You're growing your business, you're staying in the city. There's more beneficial and positive impacts than there are negative impacts. So to me, I think you meet the requirement and the relief you're seeking. So again, I wish you the very best of luck, sir, with your endeavor.
Thank you.
So we do have one condition on the docket here, and you're agreeable and amenable to the shade tree and shrubs and the update landscape on the site. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I guess another condition would be that the applicant provide adequate parking, or we're not doing anything on parking, right, Fran? There's nothing there's nothing before, it's just a special permit? 'Cause
Correct.
it says that adequate parking is
Right, they're just seeking a special permit.
Okay.
Is there a requirement of the special permit to have the required parking? I mean, it says it as a DPD note on number 5. It says a requirement is 1 parking space.
So in staff's memo, there appears to be adequate space on site to accommodate 1 additional parking space. Based on what was submitted, it looks like staff determined that it would be compliant, but
well, it says one customer space per 15 cars allowed by license, but he's only asking for, we're only doing 10.
And then it says.
So it'd only be
additional
1 would be
parking space to
required.
meet the zoning requirement, and it's not on the site plan, so I don't know how we can
Right.
approve it without
No, I
on the
understand.
site plan.
If I could also, it is an inadequate site plan. You show a landscape area under a canopy.
Under the canopy.
So and maybe it's irrigated, but it can't have shade trees.
Okay.
And you don't show parking for the other uses on the site. You don't show parking, employee parking. You show 10 spaces for sales. You don't show your employee parking, and you don't show employee parking on site for the gas station or the convenience store. So I understand you're here for a special permit for the 10 spaces, but the site plan that's presented to us is an incomplete site plan. You're asking for a landscape area that doesn't get rain and can't grow trees. And you're asking for us to just accept the fact that you have adequate parking for these other uses without depicting it and showing how it would operate. So I would suggest we continue this until we have a landscape plan that can be supported and a parking layout that understands the other uses on the site and shows the sales car parking, 10 spaces or whatever it is, the employee parking for that sales team, the employee parking for the gas station, which I'm guessing that's probably 3 or 4 spaces that are missing at least. And then if the convenience store is going to be operational, what parking is going to be supporting the convenience store, i.e. customers and employees?
Totally fine. We can make this.
I think you might have room to do it all.
Yeah.
But you don't show it.
That's fine. We can just do some homework. We can get it done. No problem.
If I may add, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Signor.
So I'm taking a look at the site plan now. This wasn't my project, so I haven't reviewed it in depth. The driving lanes, the width of them is not identified, so there could be extra room for more parking spaces. It doesn't, so the applicant's looking for 10 cars to sell. There are 8 spaces identified, but to your point, no parking. Right, and there is no parking shown for, because we would round up to 1 parking space. So there would need to be at least 1 for customer parking, but again, to your point, no employee parking. And if the applicant intended to operate a convenience store gas station, there would need to be parking for those uses as well. And if that parking was not provided, then they would need to get variances for waivers from the parking requirement as well.
Mr. Gia, do you understand, sir, that your site plan and layout of your parking and is incomplete, and we'll continue the matter, and you go back to your surveyor, your builder, and then they can help you configure an appropriate layout for all that,
Of course.
including landscape and green space.
No problem.
Okay.
Thank you guys for the time.
All right.
There's plenty of space there, it's just got to be configured on the site plan
Yeah, no problem.
and designated as to what's parking, what's not. Again, Fran, can you have Dylan take another look at this? And I guess we'll probably need some information on if he's, now that it's going to operate as a gas station and convenience store and sell
Right.
cars, whether that changes the configuration on parking.
Right, yes. So they would absolutely need to meet, if they plan to operate all of those different uses, sorry, I had never seen the site plan before because this wasn't my project, but if they intend to operate three different uses, they have to meet the parking requirement for all 3 uses. Can say that confidently. And the onus is really on the applicant to demonstrate that they meet the parking requirement. So they need to work with their surveyor, communicate that to their surveyor, and have the surveyor refer to the zoning code and see what the parking requirement is for each use, and show that to the best of their ability. And if not, they need to, they would need to seek variances from the board.
As far as I recall, he's already under a special permit to operate with 4 cars on there right now.
Okay.
So, and he's here asking that that be extended to 10. So,
Yes, but at the expense of customer parking.
yeah.
So that's what would potentially trigger the need for variances.
Okay. Yes, sir, it's just going to come down to reconfiguring for the parking on your site plan, showing the dimensions on the lot, and at that point, we can figure out the parking, and then figure out if we can get you any more cars in between 4 and 10.
No worries. It is
That's
what it is.
kind of the way it's going to go, so.
We gotta go with the flow.
Right.
Okay.
No
Thank-
problems. I mean, I think we're happy that the business is going so well now that you can
I'm still
do
alive.
this, so, yep. Great, thanks.
Awesome. Thank you,
guys.
Mr. Callan. Thank you, Mr. Gia. If there's no other comments, we'll have a motion to continue this.
What date do we want to go if we're booked on the 12th, right? I mean,
So the 26th, it's probably the best date, Ms. Igliana?
Does June 26th work for you, sir?
Yes, perfect.
And that works for you, sir?
Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
Okay. There's no other comments or questions. We have a motion to continue the matter.
Actually, Fran, can you weigh in on whether we have 5 or more already on the 26th?
We have 4 items.
Okay, so this would be
Currently.
this would be the 5th.
This
Great.
would be number 5, correct?
Great, thank
Okay.
you. Okay, through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for ZBA 2023-11 for special permit at 459 Broadway Street to be continued to June 26th.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McCarthy, second by Mr. Prokop. Can we have a roll call, please?
Chairman Peck,
Approve continuance.
Member Callahan,
Approve continuance to June
Member
26,
McCarthy.
2020.
Approve continuance to June 26th.
Member Briere,
Approval.
Member Prokop,
Approve continuance to June 26, 2023.
Member Hovey.
Approve.
All right, the matter before us has been continued. Just as a point of information and public information, this is the notice of the public hearing. There'll be no other notice for this hearing that's being continued to June 26th. All right, moving on to our next scheduled item on our agenda, under continued business. We have ZBA-2023-13. The petition is a variance special permit. Applicant is ZR Development Group LLC. Property located at 125 Perry Street. ZR Development Group LLC has applied to the Low Planning Board and Low Zoning Board of Appeals for site plan review, special permit and variance approval to demolish an existing vacant structure and construct a new 24-unit residential structure at 125 Perry Street. The property is located in traditional neighborhood mixed-use TMU zoning district and requires site plan review, approval under section 11.4 to construct more than 3 dwelling units, and a special permit approval under section 12.1E for the proposed use. The property also requires variance approval from the zoning board of appeals under section 6.1 for relief from the off-street parking requirements, and under section 5.1 for relief from the lot area per dwelling unit and usable open space per dwelling unit requirements. A special permit under section 12.6G for accessory use of the adjacent lot as a parking lot, and for any other relief required under Lowell zoning ordinance. Good evening, Councilor Gary.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, and for the record, my name is John Geary of Geary & Geary LLP, 32 Church Street, Lowell, Mass. I'm here tonight representing ZR Development Group LLC. With me tonight is one of the principals, Jim Zorbis. We also have Mark O'Hara of O'Hara Engineering, the engineer for the project. We have Angie Verge, the landscape designer, and we have Brenda McKenzie, the designer for the project. So that's our team. The subject property is located at 125 Perry Street in the traditional mixed-use zoning district. The parcel consists of approximately 15,048 square feet of land, and there's an existing 3-story building that is currently used as a church. The owner of the property is Praise Tabernacle Worship Church, and my client has the property under agreement. It was actually the applicant's intent to repurpose the existing building into 30 residential units, but after further investigation into that building, the applicant came to the conclusion that it would make for a better development by demolishing that existing building and doing ground-up construction on a new building. So the application before you tonight is to demolish the existing building, construct a 4-story building with a garage on the ground level and 3 floors above with residential units. By demolishing the existing building and doing the ground-up construction, among other benefits to the project, we're able to push the building back from the street a few feet, which gets it off the sidewalk. Currently, as the property exists, if you've been by the property, you've noted that it's right on the sidewalk. As the chairman mentioned, we're here tonight seeking relief pursuant to 5.1 for lot area per dwelling unit and usable open space. We're also seeking relief pursuant to 6.14 for off-street parking. In addition to the request for variances, we're seeking a special permit pursuant to 12.6G for accessory use of the adjacent land owned by the trustees of the townhouses at Concord Crossing, which is a condominium development that fronts on Rogers Street. The applicant and the abutter have come to terms on an agreement which will allow the applicant to use approximately 12,038 square feet of the abutter's land, so that the applicant can increase the on-street parking by approximately 16 parking spaces. That land is currently located directly behind 125 Perry Street. It runs all the way behind, along Perry Street and behind this property, and the condominium does not use that land for any purpose whatsoever. Mark will go over that, how that's shown on the site plan in a few minutes. In addition to the application we submitted, including the narrative, we provided the board with a full set of plans, including the elevations, the floor plans, the rendering, and a landscape plan. Those plans go into great detail about the project and how we meet the requirements for the special permit and the requested variances. The applicant and the, so I'm sure you've all been out to the site, but to add some context to the site, Perry Street is a one-way street from Rogers Street to Pond Street. At Pond Street, it becomes a two-way street until it ends on Andover Street. The southwesterly side of Perry Street is mostly commercial, with National Grid being a large landowner in that area. The residential units in the neighborhood are mostly single, two-family, and multifamily properties. There are several commercial condominiums along this stretch of Perry Street, and a few neighborhood businesses that serve the neighborhood. We believe that adding this residential component to this portion of Perry Street is a vast improvement to the neighborhood. Brenda will review the layout of the building with you in a few minutes. With regard to the off-street parking, the applicant's required to provide 48 off-street parking spaces. We are proposing 47 off-street parking spaces. The initial plan that was submitted indicated 46 parking spaces, but we were able to locate one additional space in the garage. So now we're seeking relief for just one off-street parking space. With regard to the DPD comments, those comments were prepared prior to the unfortunate cyber attack against the city. We've had the opportunity to address most of those concerns. So in my review of the comments, I'll focus on the comments of concern. A lot of the comments speak for themselves. Comment number 2 mentions that we're missing a couple of the elevations. As I said, we've since had the opportunity to supplement the submittal, and you should have all of the elevations in your possession now. Comment number 5 suggests that we should push the building back so the sidewalk can be ADA compliant, and so that we can provide more landscape, especially in the form of shade trees. So, as I said, we were able to do that by tearing down the building. We were pushing the building back a little bit. The sidewalk is ADA compliant, and we're providing significant landscaping in the front of the building, including shade trees. Comment number 6 suggests shade trees along the streetscape would be important. I just went over that. We are providing that, and Angie will review that with the board. Comment 7 indicates that the staff believes the proposal is a vast improvement to the neighborhood. We agree with that assessment. We also have reviewed the design planner comments, and I believe I've addressed most of those comments in my presentation thus far. The transportation engineer seems to think that the parking we're providing is sufficient, and she would like the southerly driveway to be marked for egress only. We have done that on the revised site plan. And before I turn the presentation over to Mark to review the site plan, and as an aside, you know, the board is familiar with the applicant here. The applicant and his partner have done a few projects in the city. They just finished completion of 116, 128 Perry Street, which was the repurposing, Fletcher Street, I'm sorry, the repurposing of the old Kelly Sheet Metal building. It ended up being a tremendous redevelopment into multifamily housing. They're almost complete a ground-up construction mixed-use development at 135 Chelmsford Street, and they're about to get underway with the St. Louis School Elementary building. So they're vested in the city. They have an excellent reputation within the city departments because of the quality of work that they do. So with that, I'll turn the presentation over to Mark, and he can review the site plan, and then we'll hear from the rest of the team. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Thank you, John. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Mark O'Hara. I am the owner of O'Hara Engineering, 21 Mansion Drive, Lowell, Mass. John gave a very good presentation of the site. I just wanted to go over some of the engineering-related matters. The site is, as it exists on its own lot, the 15,408 square feet lot, is currently all impervious. The building itself is about 9,000 square feet, which is about 60% of the site, and the rest of it is just asphalt and located to the rear of the site. The building sits on the front property line right now, and there is the sidewalk. I believe it is 4 or 5 feet wide, but we will be sliding that building back approximately 7 feet to provide about 7 feet on average of open space. That will increase the amount of pervious area on the site, and it'll also help this building blend in with the other structures on the street. Some are right up against the lot line, some back about 15 feet. The ones that are on the corner, as you're at the Perry Street on the left-hand side, I believe that was built by Kazanchian maybe 15 years ago. Those units are about 15 feet back. So where we're talking about this new parking is on an abutting lot. It's to the west. It's a long, thin parcel that is part of that original project that Kazanchian had built that was on the corner. It's useless land to them. In between where our site is and where those residential structures are is their detention basin. So you can't even get from where their backyards or where their common space is to this area. So it really works well with what we're proposing because there is a need for parking. So what we're proposing is the existing building being removed and replacing with a building that's about 1,000 square feet smaller. That 1,000 feet is going to go into open space, and then we're going to have parking underneath. We had to go with angle type parking because of the interior columns. It was getting too tight to make it. I think our original design had perpendicular parking. It would just be too difficult to get those parking spaces in there. So I believe we have 15 interior underneath garage parking spaces, and then there's 16 spaces that are 9 by 18 standard size on our site itself. Then you have the drive aisle, and then you got an additional 16 spaces that's on the abutting property. To offset the increase in runoff, we would be increasing the amount of impervious by 3,000 square feet. We met with the Lowell Regional Wastewater Utility, proposed an infiltration type of chamber that would go into the proposed parking area that we're creating. Initially, we had designed it for their 1-inch rule, 1 inch of runoff times the total impervious area that the development consists of. It's all impervious. We're increasing that by 4,000, total about 16,000 square feet plus, or the 4 minus 1 is 19,000 square feet. Multiply that by the 1 inch, and we recharge that amount. The city wanted to go an additional factor of safety. They said, can you meet our 1.5 inch rule? We said we can, so we went and increased the size of our drainage system by 50%. It's a Cultec type of underground storage chamber. And so it has been designed to meet that standard. We have scheduled, or we are scheduled to go out and do some test pits on site. I believe the material that we're going to encounter is fill, but we'll confirm that when we do the test pits. Gordon from Lowell Regional Wastewater Utility wanted me to notify him when we're going to do those test pits, so we're scheduling that up. It'll probably take place either this week or next week. So that's with regards to drainage. Utilities, it is an existing site. There's an existing building with existing utilities. There's water out there on site. There's an existing Siamese fire connection on the existing building. The building's going to be removed. We're going to replace it with a 6-inch water line for the sprinklers and another domestic service line. I should mention that the site itself, the abutter to its number 117 Perry, so it would be to the northwest, shares an existing water system, water service connection. So I believe one of the conditions of the agreement was that we were going to separate and provide them with their own service connection. I just wanted to bring that up. So we'll inspect the existing utilities. If we can use them and not have to open up the street, we will. If we can't, we'll provide new service connections. I believe there's gas in the street. There's also overhead. The wires, the electric and cable is overhead wiring. That will continue to be overhead since the poles are on the opposite side of the street. Let me see, I just discussed the parking, the service connection, the landscaping. Angie's gonna go into the landscaping, and there was one other thing I wanted to mention. I think I got it. Oh, yeah, the other thing I forgot to mention was that the city did make it's almost a standard comment about replacing the sidewalk out in front of the site. Got to have a 6-inch reveal with the curbing. There's about a 3-inch reveal with vertical granite curbing now. We'll be raising that vertical granite curbing and setting the sidewalk at a higher elevation. It will meet ADA requirements for width as well as slope. It's a relatively flat site, so there shouldn't be any issues there. So I'm going to hand this over to Brenda next. Brenda's going to discuss the architecture of the proposed structure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Hara. Good evening, Madam.
Hi, good evening. I'm Brenda Mackenzie, owner and designer of Mackenzie Drafting and Design in Methuen. I did work with this same team on the Chelmsford Street, so we did something, you know, kind of similar, a little bit different, but on this floor plan, we have, like they said, the garage on the bottom, 3 levels of residential units. Each level has 8 units, 24 total. There is, I have to apologize, my writing's very small here, but the 8 units, 24 units total on 3 floors. There are 6 1-bedroom, and the remaining are 2-bedroom. Some of them have 2 bathrooms, some 1 bathroom. Each unit has their own balcony. We have, facing the street side, we have the 2 entrances, kind of one on each side, and then in the garage area, we have the main lobby to assess that building. So and there's 3 stairwells in the building itself for egress. As I said, each unit has a balcony so that they can look outside and kind of become part of the neighborhood. Along within the garage, we have ample space for the bicycle parking that I know is important in the area. I don't know if you might have any questions on the design, but I'd be happy to answer them for you if you do.
Thank you, Ms. Mackenzie. Good evening, Madam.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Angie Verge, and I am a certified landscape designer and state certified horticulturist with Angie Verge Landscape Design in Carlisle, Mass. And I prepared the landscape plan for 125 Perry Street. The overall intention of the landscape plan is to thoughtfully revegetate the site through the addition of sidewalk planting areas in the front facade of the building, the addition of native shade trees on the front and back of the property, and the inclusion of green lawn space to accommodate snow storage. The proposed plan includes 10 landscape-size street trees at 2 to 2.5 inch caliper. With this and the number of parking spaces, there's approximately a ratio of 1 tree per 5 parking spaces. We'll also be adding over 50 new landscape shrubs as well. All 10 trees are native to the northeastern US, 7 of which will exceed 30 feet in height at maturity, indicating the ability to be recognized as shade trees, such as red maples and pin oaks. There will also be 3 ornamental trees at the rear of the parking lot with a smaller statue at about a 25-foot height. The plants along the front of the building, which is, I know, a big concern, the plant beds along the front of the building are 7 feet deep, and that is allowing for a nice layered planting layout. It will contain 4 narrow red maple trees and a mixed shrub planting to help soften the building facade. Underneath the windows, the plants will stay in the 3-foot range, and the shrubs along the larger wall faces will reach more like 5 to 6 feet in height to soften that front facade. The lighting fixtures in the property are included, their line voltage area lights on 15-foot posts, and the lights are dark sky compliant and energy efficient LEDs. And they'll be there to provide safety lighting to the parking area and trash enclosures, and some mounted lights above the garage entrance and exits. And I welcome any comments or questions at this time, and I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Verge.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to elaborate on something that Mark brought up, so there is a water line that runs through our property and over to the adjacent property at 117 Perry Street. I have been in discussions with the attorney for the abutter for the last several months. We have come to terms on an agreement where we are running a water line from the street to their property, so we'll separate the water line. We're also providing for a dumpster pad that's large enough to handle 2 dumpsters. We're going to allow them to use that for their trash as well. Attorney Feynman was intending to come tonight, but this was put on the meeting sort of at the last minute, and he wasn't able to make tonight's meeting. He will likely be at the planning board meeting on the 5th of June. But other than that, in this instance, the relief which we're requesting tonight can be granted without any substantial detriment to the public good or without nullifying the intent of the zoning for this district. We have a large, unique building that is unique to this property and the neighborhood. A literal enforcement of the provisions of the bylaws would result in a financial hardship for my client or for the current owner or any potential owner down the road, as the property would essentially be rendered undevelopable. So for these reasons, we believe that we meet the criteria for issuance of the variances that we're requesting, as well as a special permit, and we respectfully request approval this evening. We're happy to answer any questions that the board members may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gary. If you have no further comments, we'll open up the hearing for the public. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition, seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. We're going to open up questions and comments from the board now. The chair recognizes Mr. Briere. Mr. Briere, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The city and Lower Belvedere in particular receives all this improvement and benefit for 1 parking space. Seems like a no-brainer to me. The project will further enhance this developer's reputation and its string of success. I want to thank you for your investment, and I wholeheartedly support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Briere. The chair recognizes Mr. McCarthy. Mr. McCarthy, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's always tough to follow Mr. Briere, but he says it well. This is tremendous. And I think the relief makes a lot of sense for the 24 units that the city benefits from getting. The engineering comments, actually with design engineer, maybe she didn't have access to the plans at the time she wrote her comments. You do have a rear elevation now, at least presented tonight, and you do have a graded plan in the group of drawings that shows the retaining wall at the rear of the site that addresses how you're dealing with that grade drop-off. So, and I noticed that the floor plans are flipped. So
Yeah.
the garage plan is one direction and the floor plan's kind of flipped, so the stairs kind of, but it makes sense. The balconies, for the most part, are in the west side that face the Concord River. Is that correct? Yes, well, they're not on the east side. They're just on the south, west, and north side, correct?
Madam, if you're going to speak, could you just come to the lectern? I'm sorry.
Or maybe I'm misreading it.
Thank you. Just for the public hearing, so we're all informed. Thank you.
I apologize. The balconies, there are balconies on each side of the building, all 4 sides. You can see the front, they're in the middle, 2 on each side going up. That's the same with the back. And on both ends, there's balconies on the ends.
You're right. I missed those. It's tremendous. The design is very lively, and what a difference from the building that's there. Masterfully done.
You drive down Roger Street and you look north on Perry Street, that building just sticks out, even it's half a mile away.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the idea of pushing it off the street sidewalk to soften the edge with landscaping is tremendous. What a great landscaping plan.
Yeah.
That's very, very nicely done. I would like to ask about whether or not the building is having any sustainable elements from a utility side. Are we looking at electric bike charging stations? I know that electric bikes, electric scooters are only gaining in popularity. And I saw all these bike spots, and I'm just thinking half of them are going to need to charge, because if I had an electric bike, what would I do? I wouldn't take it up to my apartment if I could charge it downstairs in the garage.
Right, so, and the developer's open to that. It's just a matter of costing it out. I imagine that's not we're not talking about siding on the building, so, I agree with you, Member McCarthy, that the micro-mobility solutions will be having an impact at some point in the city. I don't think they do right now, but I think they're coming, including electric bikes, electric scooters. We had an applicant that is really fostering that on Middlesex Street, and that will probably be the stimulus to get that off the ground in the city.
It's here.
Yeah, well,
it's here. There are electric bikes all over the city.
right, but he's talking, I'm talking about a share program.
Sure.
I haven't
Yep.
seen that yet.
That's true. That is true, yep.
Yeah.
And is the roof being utilized for electric heat pump system for the units, or are we looking at gas?
All electric.
It is all electric.
Yep.
Phenomenal.
Well,
Great to hear.
that's impressive.
Yeah, I'm just delighted to see this coming for us, and you're turning into one of my favorite developers, or your team is. It's very nicely done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. The chair recognizes the vice chairman, Ms. Callahan. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chairman. I think great design, great layout. I literally just went by the building. It was on my route. I mean, it's kind of in my neighborhood to get here. And I always had gone by that building, like, what's in there? What's in? Just to find out there's a couple of churches, just pick that one and then one next door.
That's right.
117. So, but I think this would be a great thing. Great utilization and great project. A couple of things, though, I'm just kind of curiosity-wise, as far as transporting in and out of the building and whatnot. I'm looking at the layout of the underground parking and the way that it's configured as far as vehicles coming in and coming out. And I see on the new plans that we're going to go on the, I guess we'll call it, right side of the building, exit from the left, and then out onto Perry Street. But I'm looking at, I'm trying to configure that if someone enters the building on, I guess it's parking number 9, which is like right the far east front corner of the building. Someone trying to get into that building and having to do basically a U-turn to get into that spot.
Well,
it's going to be kind of difficult.
I mean, the access into the building will be on the north side of the building.
Yeah.
So there'll be egress and ingress from that side of the building.
Mm-hmm.
If you're parking in the garage, you'll turn left across the egress lane into the garage.
Yep.
If you're parking in the back, you'll continue in the back. To leave the site, you'll only, the south driveway will be egress only. So
Yes.
you can't pull into the site from the south driveway. And as I said, Perry Street is a one-way street until it gets to Pond Street, so you're taking a left-hand turn anyway.
So I guess my first question on that, will there be signage as far as the egress, on the
Yes.
egress area, just to make sure that people don't get into that, try to drive up that area to get into they're not going to be able to park anyways if they get inside underground into the
Right, and I'm
lot,
sure the
so.
planning board will want us to address that when
Yeah.
we haven't been before the planning board yet, but
But my concern was the one slot, and I don't know if Mr. O'Hara or Mr. Zorbis, if you want to.
Yeah, I think I can try to address this. When we initially looked at the site, originally we were going to try to salvage the existing building, and then we realized that wasn't going to work out too well. So we had a larger building with perpendicular parking. We shrunk the building width down a bit,
Yep.
and we went in with angled parking because it was between the columns and the obstructions. It was tough to get the number of spaces that we show. And then for some reason or other, there was just some confusion. We were going to come in through I guess that would be the south side of the site, the narrow side, and that didn't make sense. So going back and forth with the city and the challenges that we've had,
Yeah.
exchanging files, and just a matter of us printing out the right file. I want to say that the way we have it laid out on our current set of plans, and I wish I could share them all with you, is that you drive down Perry Street, you go past the building, then you take a left and you enter into the parking spaces.
Yeah.
And they're angled in a way that you can just pull in, easily negotiate in those turns. Some of the plans have it shown the opposite way, where you come in and then you'd have to, like you say, take a hard left or a hard right.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot easier coming in from where it really makes the most sense, coming in from, I guess you'd say, the north side of the site.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's just, I think it's the one corner of the south corner of the building where you just turn in. If you want to, I don't know, if you want to come over, I can try to. I could go over and point it out for you too, but I mean, if you just pick up so on the southeast corner of the building, where you're coming in on the southeast corner, right? And then you just immediately turn and then there's a spot right there. Yes. I'm just trying to figure out, like, how is that going to be possible unless someone does a U-turn?
Yeah, you know what we could do.
Sir, could you just grab that mic over there?
Yeah, actually,
Just
Mr.
right
O'Hara,
there,
grab that mic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's fine. Thank you, sir.
I can carry this one.
Yes.
All right. You can see we have an abundance of spaces for bicycles.
That's what kind of where I was getting at a little bit.
And the reason for that is the interior columns.
Yes.
We have to somehow negotiate and get around those. So that's where they're located. But we could eliminate this bicycle rack over here and just make this one larger space, or even put the bike rack over here.
Yeah.
So I think we could alleviate that space just by eliminating that bike rack.
Okay, that's kind of where I was kind of like looking at and getting at is, I mean, you got a lot of, again, I understand the micro mobility, and I know Dennis is a big fan of that stuff, but there are a lot of looks like there's a lot of bike racks there that we can, I don't know if you can spare one or not, Dennis. I'm not sure if that's something you, no?
I will mention this too, that I know I was here for another project, and some of the residents said, who rides an e-bike? I bet you none of you just came to this meeting tonight, an e-bike.
I ride an e-bike.
I got one.
But the one other thing, and the only one other thing I mentioned with regards to the parking, I noticed the handicap spaces designated. You got one closer to the entrance and another one closer to the lobby area. I mean, shouldn't they kind of be closer to the lobby area if they
that
handicap?
again?
The handicap spaces, it look like they're designated. One is out towards the, there's two spaces from the lobby area opening, and then there's another one that's closer to the entrance area for the car. Shouldn't they be closer to the lobby area, or if we're trying to look to get some handicap access so they have easy access to get to the lobby area? Wouldn't that be?
Yeah, you do want to have
some way
them.
we can get around that.
I do believe, do we have elevators in this?
No.
No? We could relocate it, but if we do, we may end up losing a parking space.
Okay. All right.
So, I mean, I think it's, you want it to be as close as possible
I'm
can
just
be.
I'm thinking, as far as accessibility, you don't want to, probably want it closer to the lobby area as possible, but if that's not, if it's going to take away from a parking space, then so be it. I mean, it's going to be ADA compliant, but I guess I'm just trying to accommodate for the handicap spacing to get it closer to the lobby area as possible, but if you can't do it, then.
We'll certainly look at it and see if there's a way that we can. That's not an issue.
It just seemed to make sense for accessibility purposes, but that's just all I had. But again, certainly looking forward to this project. I think it's going to be a great addition to the city, and I wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. The chair recognizes Mr. Hovey. Ms. Hovey, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I'll echo everybody else's comments. It's a good project. It's much needed in that neighborhood. I do have one question. I don't know if you can answer it or not. So you have 16 leased parking spots at this point?
60 years, there'll be 16 parking spots on that adjacent abutting parcel.
Right. I don't know if you can disclose it, but how long of a lease are we looking at? If we're looking at a 5-year lease that pushes 16 back onto the street?
No, right. The lease would be a long-term lease, 99-year lease, or an easement, which would be run with the land.
Sure. All right, that was my only concern. If it was short-term, then we...
Yeah, no, short-term doesn't make sense for anybody.
Beautiful. Nope, appreciate it. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Harvey. The chair recognizes Mr. Prokop. Mr. Prokop, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm probably the only one in this room that doesn't own an e-bike.
I don't. Bet on that.
I love this plan. I love the design. I love the landscaping. I mean, that's one of the things that we are such a proponent of. And the fact that, there is minimum variance required, I think this, in addition to the beautification of that area that's so sorely needed, I mean, the revenue that it will bring to the city, I couldn't be more pleased with this project. Right. So I'll be voting in favor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prokop. Mr. Gary, again, I think this is a true testament of what a build should be like in the use of the process and zoning. Something like this is just a big asset and just a great thing for the city. Thank you, Mr. Zobrist, for your continued investment in the city. And again, to your team, it's such a wealth of information and details. I'm not a lot of my colleagues are like lawyers, architects, housing experts. I'm just a guy who works with kids. But it's very impressive here. It's a very impressive package, very impressive just plan, and a great reuse, repurpose of this lot. A little sad that we couldn't, repurpose the building, but understandable. Again, a great, tremendous asset to the community, this project. And again, like my colleague said, I think the city will benefit years and decades to come from this project. So thank you again for your investment. If we have no comments by anybody, Mr. McCarthy, go ahead, sir.
I'm sorry. I just want to ask about, I think it was explained, but I might have missed it. Where is the dumpster? It's shared, is that correct?
Yeah, it's straight back from the egress and ingress, from the north side of the property. There's a double dumpster pad fenced in. So I don't know which plan you're looking at. You should have the revised that should, Mark, is it on that? Yeah. So Mark will show you.
Can I borrow your agenda? I just need-
Thank you, Mr. Hara.
Yeah, so coming into the site, it's straight back. So, a truck will just pull right in, front-loading truck. And it's a double size pad. It will be shared with the abutting building, number 117, Perry. I don't know if it's shown, I don't know if you have the latest set of plans or not. I think we may not have shown it on the, or we may have had interior or something, but I know it's something we picked up about a little more than a month ago. And we're proposing a dumpster pad that it will actually fit two separate dumpsters.
Is that one for recycling, or is it single, what is it called, single sort, multi, what?
I think it's single sort. I'm not sure. Single sort, yeah.
Okay. And does that conflict with the landscape plan? Do we have pin oaks in that area? Does the dumpster location, I'm trying to pull up the landscape plan, but My internet's so slow. Oh, it's open. Okay, great. All right.
The
Wonderful.
dumpster pad is on
Yep.
there and the
Yep.
proposed fencing
Yep.
as well.
Phenomenal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. And thank you again, Councilor Gary, and to your team. Just a very thorough and detailed project. So I appreciate that, and I'm sure my colleagues do as well. If there's no further comments or questions, Mr. Callan, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think, we should do any conditioning on signage for the ingress and egress of the underground thing, or should we just leave that to the planning board? Because, I mean, I know you're going to put the signage up, I'm sure the planning board's going to ask for it too, but I'm kind of thinking about, especially egress from the underground building, another car coming up at the same time, how are they going to, I'm presuming there's going to be mirrors and stuff set on that, or is that going to be?
Yes, there'll be mirrors, and there'll be directionals on the pavement.
Yeah.
The garage, again, you're going in, entering into the garage, you can only do one way.
Yep.
Because you can only access the garage, and the parking spaces are aligned, so you're going from north to south with the garage.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to configure
Yeah,
the
we're
ingress and
happy,
egress
you
of
know,
possible.
We're going to put up the signage, so we're happy to condition any approval on signage.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll make that condition as long as you're okay
Yes.
with that, Mr. Gary. Thank you.
I'd really like to see that parking spot number 9 reconfigured, though. If you have to remove the bike lane, I'm sorry, Dennis.
I mean,
Because it just seems weird for me to somebody going in and basically doing a U-turn to get in there.
Actually, I think the bikes just switch sides.
Yeah,
So
you can do that.
You don't
That's
have
fine.
to
If you
lose
can-
any bikes.
If it's
Just
feasible,
slide it over.
you can
Yeah.
do that. That's fine.
you say that again, I'm sorry.
That space number 9?
Yeah.
Yeah, reconfigure that, either put the bike, either take out the bike
We can- yeah, we
thing or
can
move it on the other
bike
side.
rack, and we can, that's a
Okay.
acceptable condition as well.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
Thank you, Mr. Callan. Thank you. So we'll go forward with a motion with the aforementioned conditions that we talked about.
Through Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for ZBA 2023-13 for variances and special permit at 125 Perry Street. Let's see. First one is a variance for to construct more than 3 dwelling units, a special permit under section 12.1 for the proposed use, a variance for under section 6.1 for relief for off-street parking, and under section 5.1 for relief for lot area per dwelling unit and usable open space per dwelling unit, and a special permit under section 12.6 for accessory use of adjacent lot as a parking lot, and any other relief required.
There's just one special permit, 12-6G. The planning
Oh,
board
it's
will
planning
address
board.
the other one.
That's correct. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yep.
So so Fran, separate votes, right, for the special permits, and one for the special permit, one for the variance?
You can motion to approve both under the same motion, like, you can, if, it depends, it doesn't really matter.
Historically, we usually do this, we
I've seen
separate them out,
both.
so just for the heck of it.
Okay.
So,
All right.
So I'll make amendment to that. First vote will be the special permit.
Okay.
We do that, and then second vote for the variance.
All right, motion by Mr. McCarthy, second by the Vice Chairman, Ms. Callahan. Can we roll call, please?
Chairman Peck,
Approve of conditions.
Member Callahan,
Approve with conditions.
Member McCarthy,
Approve with conditions.
Member Briere,
Approval.
Member Proko,
Approve with conditions.
Member Hovey.
Approve.
All right, that's been approved. Can we have a second motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion for ZBA 2023-13 for variances required at 125 Perry Street with 2 conditions.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McCarthy, second by the Vice Chairman, Ms. Callahan. Can we roll call, please?
Chairman Peck,
Approve of conditions.
Member Callahan,
Approve with conditions.
Member McCarthy,
Approve with conditions.
Member Briere,
Approval.
Member Proko,
Approve with conditions.
Member Hovey.
Approve.
All right, Counselor, you've been approved. Special permit variance. Wish you the best of luck.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Great job, guys. Great presentation, too. Thank you. Moving on, under continued business, we have ZBA-2023-14, The petition is a variance. The applicant is Manuel and Elizabeth Silver, property located at 45 Concord Street. Mr. and Mrs. Silver have applied for site plan review, special permit, and approved to construct 4 townhouse-style residents at 45 Concord Street. The property is located in the traditional neighborhood mixed-use TMU zoning district and requires site plan review under section 11.4 to construct more than 3 dwelling units and special permits approval pursuant to section 11.3 and 12.1D for the proposed use. The project also requires variance approval for relief from the lot area per dwelling unit requirement under section 5.1 and for any other relief required under local zone ordinance. Oh, good evening again, Mr. Gary.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Again, for the record, my name is John Geary of Geary & Geary LLP, 32 Church Street, Lowell, Mass. I'm here tonight representing the applicants, Manuel and Elizabeth Silva. We also have Brian Melissi of Haley Ward Engineering, and we have Phil Tebow, the architect for the project. As the chairman mentioned, the application involves a request for a variance pursuant to 5.1 for lot area per dwelling unit. The applicants intend to redevelop this vacant lot at 45 Concord Street, which consists of approximately 7,669 square feet of land, into 4 townhouse-style residential units. The property is located in the traditional mixed-use zoning district. Subject property is located within the same neighborhood as the last application we just heard, and as I mentioned, that neighborhood consists of single, two-family, and multifamily properties with a lot of neighborhood business and some commercial use as well. This stretch of Concord Street, which runs from Andover Street to Pond Street in a one-way direction from Andover Street to Pond, has a significant commercial look to it. The westerly side of Concord Street is currently all business, and the easterly side of this portion of Concord Street has a mix of multifamily with mixed use, really, multifamily with businesses on the lower levels. The applicants also own the abutting property to the south and west of 45 Concord Street and own and operate Silver's Market on Perry Street. They also live at 70 Concord Street, right across the street from this property. In any event, the addition of 4 townhouse-style residential units will significantly soften the commercial look to this property. The topography of the lot is generally flat. There's a significant drop-off at the rear of the property where it abuts the Perry Street property. With regard to parking, it was our view that the parking requirement for this proposal required 11 parking spaces. However, the staff comments noted that we needed 9 parking spaces. In any event, we're providing 8 on-site parking spaces within 45 Concord Street and 3 parking spaces on the adjacent lot on Perry Street, which is the Silver Market property. There are 2 tandem parking spaces to the north side of this property that will be assigned to one of the units, so there's no confusion as to cars coming and going. The lot that we're proposing the additional parking spaces on is, as I said, part of the Silver Market property. It's used for storage right now, but the Silvers are intending to redevelop, improve that lot so they can provide additional parking for their business, and they're going to able to provide 3 additional spaces for this lot. Those spaces will be accessed by way of stairs, which are fairly clearly depicted on the plan. So with the exception of the lot area per dwelling unit, this proposal meets all of the dimensional requirements of 5.1. The applicants intend to establish a bin pickup service for the residents of these units through a private waste company. I believe that I've addressed any of the concerns noted in the comments that were still circulated by the staff, but if the board has any questions, we can elaborate on those. So at this point, I'll turn the presentation over to Brian so he can review the site plan, and then we'll hear from Philip with regard to the architectural aspects of the plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Good evening, sir. Yeah.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, Brian Melissi with Haley Wood. We are the civil engineers on the project. Again, Attorney Gary's making my job very easy tonight. He did a very good job of kind of outlining the project. The site, from a civil engineering standpoint, the site is serviced by municipal sewer, it's serviced by municipal water, and it's serviced by natural gas. I believe it's around circa 2011 or so. There was an existing building on this lot that was raised. So it's our intention and our hope to utilize the existing sewer service that's there. We may have to do a little bit of cammering or investigation when the time comes. When the final designs from the fire protection engineer or lack thereof, we will put a number to the size of the water services that are going to service the building. For now, we just show those and say to be determined from a size standpoint. The parking lots, some of the roof runoff and as well as the parking lot runoffs run to a subsurface recharge system, very similar to a couple of projects ago. They're an underground kind of concave high-density polyethylene chamber system that will collect the water, treat it, and put it back into the ground. We have had preliminary conversations with the stormwater team about capturing the inch and a half rainfall, which we certainly do that here. I think Attorney Gary went over the fact that we have 6 spaces, a 6-space parking lot on one end of the building to service it. On the other side, we provide 2 tandem spots for a total of 8 on-site, and there's 3 to the rear off of Perry Street. I kind of read the zoning, the parking table to read that because we had 2 curb cuts onto the property, we needed to provide an additional 2 spaces, which is with a 9+2. So our plans show 11 spaces, and that's what we do provide. As part of the package, there was a landscape plan. When the architect, Mr. Tebow, starts to talk about his property, he's got a very nice rendering that I just covered up with my very crudely covered site plan. We do provide some landscape areas to the front of the building, as well as some additional landscaping to the rear of the building. We know we were trying to fit in some shade trees along the front facade, along Concord Street. It was very difficult to do that, so we have put some in the rear of the site. We did receive some comments from the city engineer's office, and really, we will take care of every single one of those. A lot of them are those common comments to a construction project within the city of Lowell, and some additional information on the inverts and whatnot of our sewer service, which we will provide. So again, I apologize for being quick, but I'll be certainly here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your comments.
And I will turn it over to the project architect.
Oh, yeah, of course. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and the board. My name is Philip Tebow from Philip Tebow Architects with an address at 1168 Lakeview Avenue in Dracut. You can see that the architectural vernacular of the townhouses is very traditional. There are 4 townhouse units side by side. The footprint of each unit is approximately 550 square feet. Total length of the building is 80 feet, and it's 27 feet 6 inches deep. It's a 2.5-story structure with the mean slope of the roof at 25 feet. We're utilizing multiple types of cladding, so there's clapboard style, there's shingle style. We're also using multiple color to help provide a more visual interest to the structure itself. Each of the units will be sprinkled, as is required by code. I'm not sure if there's anything else I could add to that, unless you'd like. Certainly, I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Phil. So ultimately, this is an investment of about $1.5 million into this section of Concord Street. The proposal will enhance the quality and character of the neighborhood without any detrimental impact whatsoever. Relief can be granted without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent of the zoning for this district. A literal enforcement of the zoning bylaws could potentially result in my client's inability to properly utilize the lot, and that would result in a hardship to my client, financial or otherwise. So we feel we meet the criteria for issuance of the variances, and we respectfully request approval tonight. Happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gary. Now we'll open up the meeting to the public. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. We're going to open questions and comments to the board. The chair recognizes Mr. McCarthy. Mr. McCarthy, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's wonderful to see a development on this lot. It'd be tremendous to go down and Concord Street and see these units. They're beautiful, and in that location, I think they'd be enjoyed by the community very much.
I would agree.
And the parking's handled very respectfully. You don't try to wrap the whole facility with parking. You have a nice green space behind it. You have parking just where it has to be on the sides. The idea of the double deep spaces, so that would be assigned to that adjacent unit, is that correct?
That's right. That would make the most sense. It would certainly assign it to one unit, and it would obviously make sense to assign it to the closest unit to that parking area.
So maybe as a condition, we say that the tandem parking spaces on the north side of the site would be assigned to Unit 4, adjacent to the parking?
Absolutely.
Okay. I am disappointed in the shade trees, especially in light of the previous application. 7 feet, they accomplished, 7 feet setback, they accomplished a tremendous amount of landscaping. And we have red maples. I think there's 4 of them, if not 5 of them on that. So this street is crying for shade trees. I think there's one in the stretch between, is that Andover Street and Rogers? There's only, maybe there's 2. There's actually 2. I take it back. There's 2 shade trees in that entire stretch, which I think at one time probably was littered with shade trees, and just over time they've been taken down. So a question is, would it be possible to step the building? So what you did is you went parallel to the rear property line instead of the street, which gives you this wedge in the front for planting. And I'm just wondering, is it possible to create a more uniform 6 or 7 foot offset from the sidewalk or the street setback? And I know the foundations are going to get more expensive. I imagine things are going to get more expensive. I understand that. Maybe the whole building could be stepped back another couple of feet. It looks like we have room on the grading side to accomplish that. So how would you go about providing 4 shade trees?
Without stepping on my the attorney's toes, in order to do that, we would have to request additional relief. As of right now, the zoning calls for a 20-foot rear setback, which we have. So if we were to step that building back any further, we would need a dimensional variance from the rear property line.
But benefit from shade trees, which are completely missing in that section.
So I take the kiss for this entirely because I fought tooth and nail that the 20-foot offset, needed to be adhered to. If there's any chance of additional relief, which is why I'm looking back at the attorney, then we could certainly step that back a couple of feet.
Especially this section doesn't have overhead wires. The shade trees would be left to their own devices. They wouldn't be trimmed by National Grid or whoever they are.
I thought it would be important to prove,
Yeah.
show how we could get the building there without any additional relief. And then I'm going to let Mr. Gary come up here and talk about that. But
Well, I'd like to ask 5 feet. If we dropped it to 20, from 20 to 15, would that be acceptable to get shade trees and still accomplish a reasonable cost for foundations and grading?
that would be acceptable as long as the additional relief is acceptable to the board.
I see, yep. Fran, what would, if I was to ask my board members to support me in change of the setback from 20 to 15, is that something we could do at this hearing?
Yes.
Okay. Then I'd like to do that. I'd like to ask, for the sake of getting 4 shade trees in this incredibly starved zone of, to change the setback, rear setback to 15 feet and provide a variance for that relief. And once again, this is a wonderful thing to see us getting. I think that these units could even classify as affordable because they're 1,500 square feet, they're not oversized, and they just seem like they'd be a great asset. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. The chair recognizes the vice chairman, Ms. Callahan. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'll agree with Dennis. If we can get that additional shade tree, we can certainly encompass it with the catch-all of, any other zoning relief necessary.
Right.
So I would be agreeable to that. That seems to make total sense for me. We can get the more shade trees in that area, the better. This is a fantastic design, and especially for that lot in that area. And I think it's going to be great for the neighborhood. Again, I'm in the neighborhood, and I go to the Silvers, Mr. and Mrs. Silvers Market all the time, and it's great. And whenever I'm hungry for some Portuguese food or something, go pop in and pick some up. So, this will be fantastic for the neighborhood and for the Silver family, and I wish you the best of luck. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. The chair recognizes Mr. Hovey. Mr. Hovey, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. I'll echo what my peers here have said. It's a great project in a neighborhood that needs projects like this going forward. I just have one maybe question or suggestion. The 3 additional parking spaces on Perry Street, is there going to be any designation that those are residential parking for Concord Street?
We're happy to condition the approval upon signage for that, parking for
I just don't.
45 Concord Street. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's off-street parking. I just don't want people on Perry Street, especially we're putting a project in less than half a mile down the road.
That makes
Guests
sense.
or whatever to start using off-street parking reserved for the Concord
Right.
Street one. So if you're willing to do that, I think that would be great.
We are.
Thank you, Mr. Hovey. The chair recognizes Mr. Prokop. Mr. Prokop, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Member McCarthy on the trees. I think it will actually add to the previous project, which has a lot of landscaping. So I think, it melding with that area, it will only enhance the beautification of that. So, so I would like to, Fran, I'm not sure, they had the project with the free trees. Is that still available where the applicant can take advantage of that?
The program is still available. I'm not sure if this is a qualified district.
Oh,
It's only in certain areas. I believe the Lower Highlands and the Acre is where it's concentrated right now.
okay.
So we would need to check, but if this is in that area, we can absolutely connect the applicant to the program.
Okay, thanks. Again, I agree with members that it's a beautiful project, so I would be voting in favor of this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prokop. The chair recognizes Mr. Brier. Mr. Brier, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to compliment the Silvers for a beautiful design and for the much-needed neighborhood enhancement that your generous investment is going to provide. Additionally, I'd like the record to reflect the comments of our Economic Development Director, who was also very enthusiastic about the project and says by creating this housing, this proposal brings the potential for more regular customers to local businesses, improves the look of the site, the overall neighborhood, and is of tremendous benefit to the city as a whole. Thank you, folks. I'll be voting in favor.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. Counselor, like my colleague said, amazing project, amazing reuse of the lot, and to the testament of Mr. and Mrs. Silver, I think you guys showed a lot of restraint in terms of what you wanted to build and the units. I think it really fits in well with the neighborhood. You probably could have even, it'd have been a lot harder, requested for double the amount of units, but so I appreciate that. You showed a lot of restraint in really just doing the 4 units, the townhouses. So again, I think it shows kind of the, you have a pulse of the community and you know what's not just appropriate, but what's fair to everyone involved. So not just to yourself and to your own financial gain. So again, I think this is a great project, and thank you again for your investment in the city. So, Councilor Gary, we have 2 conditions that we talked about, three. As long as you're amenable to all those, we'll move forward with a
Could
vote.
we just go over those conditions one more time?
Yes, of course. One was the tandem parking, like for Unit 4, additional shade tree for each unit, and then the third one.
Signage on
and
Perry Street.
signage.
Signage on Perry Street for the parking for those units.
And the signage as well for the parking.
Those are all agreeable.
Okay.
I don't think we need to designate the signage to a particular unit unless anybody else thinks that's.
Right, no, parking for
45 Perry,
Yeah, of course.
for 45 Concord Street only, yep.
Okay. Thank you. And Ms. McCarthy, go ahead, sir.
I was actually suggesting, since the length of the building is 80 feet, that we look at 4 shade trees, 1 every 20 feet, 1 for each unit, if that's right.
That's agreeable.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right, that being said, we'll have a motion with the previously mentioned conditions.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for ZBA 2023-14 for variance at 45 Concord Street for relief from lot area per dwelling unit under requirement of section 5.1 with the 3
Second.
with the 3 conditions.
Also for rear setback as well, because we're.
Right.
I'm
So
sorry.
you add the rear yard setback to that.
And relief for rear setback, yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion by Mr. McCarthy, second by Mr. Prokop. Can we have a roll call, please?
Chairman Peck,
Approve of conditions.
Member Callahan,
Approve of conditions.
Member McCarthy,
Approve with conditions.
Member Briere,
Approval.
Member Prokop,
Approve with conditions.
Member Hovey.
Approved.
All right. Counselor, you've been approved. Wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you all for your time tonight.
Thank
Dismissed,
you.
council, long day.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a good evening, folks. Thank you. Moving on to our next item on our agenda under continued business, we have ZBA-2023-15. The petition is a special permit. The applicant is CT Signs and Graphics, property located at 12 Wood Street. CT Signs and Graphics has applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals to erect an internally illuminated signage at 12 Wood Street. The subject property is located in the regional retail RR zoning district. The proposal requires special permit approval per section 6.3 for internally illuminated signage and any other relief required in the low zone ordinance. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, everybody. Luckily, last one. But I am here on behalf of City Signs and Graphics, and also on behalf of the owner of the Nail Palace. As in the plans, I am seeking a special permit for 2 set of channel letters internally LED illuminated for the 2 sides of the existing business. We're removing the purple nails, I believe. Yeah, purple nails and spa. That's very colorful right now, and just replacing it with a simple white acrylic face with a black trim and black can on a raceway that's going to be painted to match the facade. I'm open to questions. I don't have much to add.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. If you have no further comments, we'll open the hearing to the public. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition, seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? in favor? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. We're going to over questions, comments to the board. The chair recognizes the vice chairman, Ms. Callahan. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you through you, Mr. Chairman. No real questions. I mean, everything seems clear here. DPD is in favor, and it looks like now the whole plaza at Wood Street is now full. We've done signage for like pretty much every business in that plaza. So looks like things are booming over on Wood Street. So I wish you the best of luck. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. The chair recognizes Mr. Hovey. Mr. Hovey, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. No, this is a pretty straightforward ask for a permit. I have no questions or concerns with it.
Thank you, Mr. Hovey. The chair recognizes Mr. Prokop. Mr. Prokop, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with my fellow members that it's straightforward. I see that the sign will be lit sundown to 1 hour after closing, which is standard. So I'll be voting in favor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Prokop. The chair recognizes Mr. Brier. Mr. Brier, the floor is yours, sir.
No questions, Mr. Chairman. Good luck with your business.
Thank you, Mr. Brier. The chair recognizes Mr. McCarthy. Mr. McCarthy, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a nice improvement. And what time is closing?
Well, it's for my client. I believe it would be 8 or 9 o'clock.
Oh, it's early. Okay, all right. I don't know if we need to condition that. For the rest of the board members, I think we'll just leave it at closing if it's that early. So, yeah, no further comments. Wonderful to see this. Thank you.
Madam, makes great sense. They're here for the sign. It's updated marketing and advertisement. Again, it sounds like your business is thriving, so congratulations on your client's business. So congratulations on that, and we look forward to you continuing success in the city, so thank you. If we have no further comments or questions by my colleague, we'll move to a motion.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for ZBA 2023-15 for a special permit at 12 Wood Street for internally illuminated sign.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McCarthy, second by Mr. Hovey. Can we have a roll call, please?
Chairman Peck,
Approve.
Member Callahan,
Approved.
Member McCarthy,
Approve.
Member Briere,
Approval.
Member Prokop,
Approve.
Member Hovey.
Approve.
All right, ma'am, you've been approved. Wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening. Thank you. Moving on to our next item on the agenda, new business. There is no new business. Move on to our next scheduled item on the agenda, other business. We have minutes for approval for April 10th, the meeting minutes. Do we have any edits, updates, comments to the minutes from April 10th? Seeing none, I will be abstaining. I wasn't here for that, and I didn't review the notes. So if there's no further comments, we'll move to a motion for the minutes for approval.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of April 10th, 2023.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McCarthy to approve the meeting minutes, seconded by
Callahan.
Mr. Callahan, the Vice Chairman. Roll call, please.
Member Callahan,
Approved.
Member McCarthy,
Approve the meeting minutes of April 10th, 2023.
Member Briere,
Approval.
Member Prokop,
Approve meeting minutes, April 10th, 2023.
Member Hovey.
Approve.
All right, the minutes have been approved. Do we have any other comments or anything or questions before we
Mr.
adjourn?
Chairman, I have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead. Mr. Briere, go ahead.
I would just like to apprise the board of, I will not be in attendance at the June 12
Okay.
meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for that, information, Mr. Briere. It's appreciated. Any other comments or from my colleagues?
Quick question to Fran, Mr. Chairman. Fran, I'm trying to recall, were we going to get some report on signage or some idea of what the plans are for, I'm trying to recall. I know we haven't had a meeting in a month because of the, obviously,
Yeah, I think
internet down and everything, and I'm just trying to recollect about the signage thing.
the board was going to take the lead on coming up with some
Oh, yeah, that's
red line revisions, and then we would
Mr.
look at it.
McCarthy, I believe, was supposed to take the lead.
Mr. Callahan, you're correct. in
Yes,
that.
my
And
apologies.
Thank you for reminding me. It came across.
No, I totally forgot, so, I mean, it's,
I will work on that for the 12th.
okay.
Thank you, Mr.
It just,
McCarthy.
when we did the last one about signage, I'm like, weren't we supposed to get a report on that or do something about it?
So thank you, Mr. McCarthy. Thank
cool.
you, Mr. Callahan. Any other questions or comments from the board?
And I was just
Mr.
wondering
McCarthy,
if we
yeah.
could maybe, we have a new member joining us on the 12th, I believe. And I don't know if it'd be wise to reach out to that member to watch the meeting and maybe sign the affidavit if they want to vote. It'd be nice maybe if they could participate in that.
Did we have any continued business to the 12th, Fran?
Oh, that's right.
If we don't have any continued business, he should be okay.
Okay. That's great.
Okay.
Thank you. You're right.
Thank you for that, Mr. McCarthy.
Yep. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I just want to say real briefly, I want to say thank you to my colleagues, the board, Ms. Igliano. During my leave of absence, you guys held it down, so I appreciate everything. Yeah, so thank you so much. I just want to say that. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
I just want to say welcome back, Member Peck, and I'm glad to see you back this soon. So thank you for joining us.
Ditto.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McCarthy to adjourn, second by Mr. Callahan. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. We are adjourned. Thank you and have a good night, folks.